I guess, yeah. And you know, Dom, we are live.
Yeah,
so,
we are. Wow, I'm getting a sense of deja vu here, Chris. I feel like I'm in one of those sitcoms where the only thing that's changed is our clothes that we're wearing, you know?
Yeah, I'm wearing my Rogue One t-shirt, which I realize is a day late short.
Yeah. And I'm wearing my Wappingers Pirates t-shirt because I still don't actually own any, like, Star Wars brand paraphernalia.
Wow, we'll have to change that.
Yeah.
Also, interesting choice of word, paraphernalia. But
hey, man,
anyways.
it works. That is a legal term. That is not at all above reproach. I need to stop talking before I dig myself into a grave. Chris, what are we here to talk about today?
Today we are here to talk about Star Wars, and in a nutshell, I guess various topics pertaining to its past, its present, and its future. Because here on the channel this month, we've been kind of doing a Star Wars celebration, and you guys have been really good to it. So if you're here right now, we know you know about this sort of celebration, about this event we've been doing, and we figured what better way to close it all out than on the last weekend of our last month of the last weekend of the last day, pretty much, that we can do this with our schedules, to come in and talk Star Wars here on our channel. And so we brought like a talented panel of guests to kind of just dissect it. It's a bit of a different cast than what you've seen. Of course, there are some familiar faces, some series regulars, if you will, to our Star Wars month special. But for the most part, I mean, this is going to be different than what we've seen, because we're not watching along with the movie right now. We're not sort of talking about something current. We're trying to talk about this galaxy far, far away in a nutshell. I don't know how we're going to do it, but we're going to do it.
Look,
Sash, what's going on, man? Thanks for being here.
Thanks for being here in the chat, Sash. Look, it's safe to say that the Star Wars franchise is special for a lot of different people. And so today we have assembled what I think is the perfect panel to kind of break down kind of what we were trying to figure out last night, with the idea of why it is that Zack Snyder keeps getting so many different chances with his cuts. But today, we're hopefully going to do a much more justifiable cause, and that we are trying to figure out, we are going to officially break down here on May 23rd, 2020, market people, we are going to break down what it is exactly that people love so much about this Star Wars franchise.
Yeah, and so with that being said, I think it's only fitting, based off of his background and the fact that he is so far of a different time zone away from us. I don't even know how he's making it work with the schedule. So this is dedication to Star Wars right here. Guys, join us in welcoming our friend Yolo to the chat, man. Yolo, what's going on, dude? Thanks for being here.
Hi, thank you. I'm here with my friend Chewbacca. Don't know if you guys can see it.
Oh, we can see
it. Thank you for having me. Yeah, I love Star Wars. It's I'm 40 years old, so I saw the originals not when it came out, but when I was very young. So this love for Star Wars has been something that's been with me all my life. So I love talking about it.
All right.
Yeah, and why don't you tell everyone real quick a little bit about what you do over on your Instagram account before we send it over to our next guest.
Okay. So the Instagram account is me and my daughter. She's 15. We created this Instagram account because we live in separate countries, and we just wanted something cool that we could do together. And since she's little, we have this common love for movies. So we thought making an Instagram account about movies and our ideas and what we thought about was cool. And with that, it just grew, and we started creating this amazing community and being part of it. So it's been fun, and we still love talking about movies. It's our opinions. We don't think we're right or wrong. We just want to share what we think about movies and have something to do together. So it's all about that. You can see reviews, you can see lists, you can see our opinions in certain subjects, and we just try and show our love for movies.
Beautiful.
Right.
Man.
Awesome. Very righteous cause.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. Now our next guest hails from the mighty Philadelphia. Welcome,
returning player,
our fellow East Coaster, and he's been a part of pretty much every Star Wars event on our channel this month. So you guys know Joe from Guyatthemovies. Joe, thanks for joining us today again.
Thanks for having me for this. I can't help but notice you didn't bring me in for the Snyder Cut conversation, which I would have been still talking about today. So, but no, really happy to be here. Excited to talk Star Wars. We've talked a lot about this over the past few watches regarding Star Wars and where it's going and kind of where things are. So I'm really looking forward to kind of dive into a little bit more of it, especially with the additional guests that we have tonight. I think that would be great. But guys, yeah, Guy at the Movies. Feel free to check out the Instagram Guy at the Movies. Check out guyatthemovies.com. We just launched the news function. And when I say we, I mean I just launched the news function of guyatthemovies.com. So really getting that going. And just a lot of fun conversations happening on Tuesdays and Thursdays with Quarantine Conversations. So guys, pumped to be here. Justice for Solo. And we will see where this goes.
I love that. That is a great touch, guys. Go back and check out our solo watch along from earlier this month if you want to know just exactly what that means. And so Joe actually, Joe knows people, and Tuesdays and Thursdays on his account are proof of that. But we also have proof right now in the shape and form of the Casual Moviegoer, because Joe was so kind to help us out. We needed another guest, and not only did he give us another guest, he gave us someone who has such a polarizing opinion on Star Wars that I'm just so excited to have you here, man. So it's a pleasure to meet you again, and thank you for being here, dude.
Honestly, thank you for having me so much. Yes, Dominic, I know you professed that we're all here to talk about our love for Star Wars, but I think I'm going to have to be the Sith Lord in this episode because I personally have retired from the Star Wars franchise. I have boycotted it after the last release. I'm happy to explain why as we get talking along, but in terms of my page, the Casual Moviegoer, I specialize in 60-second movie reviews. I guarantee it'll be the most entertaining and energetic movie reviews you've seen on Instagram by far.
Yeah.
Okay, well, the first response that I'm going to have to that is you clearly haven't met me or watched any of my stuff yet. And second of all, there's even more excited to have you here because, oh man, if there's one thing I love more than somebody who just diehard loves everything about Star Wars, it's somebody who hates what Disney did with this past trilogy. So I am definitely looking forward to hearing your thoughts on this.
And that's kind of why I kept that in the shadows from you. Maybe that's a little bit of a Sith Lord play
a little
myself.
bit. I see, pulling a Sidious to my Dooku or Maul. I see how it is.
Hey man, it's all for the sake of the show. And someone who always puts on an incredible show. This dude has been nothing but good to us since we've been on YouTube. He is one of the best people I've ever met on the internet. So I'm gonna let him speak for himself. Elliot, man, from Movie Files. Thank you for being here. Dude.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, guys. I love the community you guys are building. Love these conversations, and I'm very excited to talk about Star Wars. Sticking with Joe's theme, release the J.J. Abrams cut, release the Colin Trevorrow cut, the Lord and Miller cut. I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun conversations. But no, I'm Elliot from I'm Elliot from Movie Files, and yeah, you guys can check me out on YouTube. I try to review everything. I try to give you my honest opinions on small budget films, big budget films, television shows. I have my own watch-alongs and a lot of great content on my channel, so check me out there. I'm also on Instagram. I try to share my opinions on movie posters, movie trailers, movie news, things of that nature. So definitely check me out on those two platforms. And again, I'm excited to talk Star Wars with you guys.
Yeah, I think the word eclectic doesn't quite even do the diversity of your palette justice, Elliot. So if you guys are in for a little bit of everything and anything, go check out Movie Files channel. But
Elliot, I just wanted to say I was so happy when I saw that you reviewed Loose because I haven't even gotten to that movie yet.
I have to see that.
Yeah, that was one of those movies that my friends were telling me ad nauseum to watch that I just never got a chance to. And I'm like, damn it, Elliot saw it. That means I have to watch it now.
So Hulu, definitely check it out.
I'm gonna have to check that out. I was just watching Lovebirds, which we're not even gonna get into.
God,
right now.
Why would you torture yourself that way?
I liked it.
You liked it? All right. Well, Joe, we'll talk a little bit off air, I guess, if you don't got anywhere to be. Pert-minded, salute, my friend. Thank you for being here, dude. We love your content. We appreciate you coming and hanging today. And hey, someone's
2020.
Someone's already loving this, Dom, and we haven't even got going. So, Satch, I'm glad you're loving this. It's only gonna get better from here. So, Dom, you kind of you did the homework for this one. I
did just a little bit,
but you're the reason they're here. So why don't you start us off, Dom? What is the first talking point?
I'm not going to pretend and try and shelter my clear ego in saying that anybody always ever turns up for me exclusively. But yes, I did my homework. I was able to take a little bit of a break from my Marvel rewatch. Yes, guys, I'm doing an entire rewatch of the Marvel movies. If I come out of this actually being able to like superhero movies after this, I will be amazed. I only made it halfway through Age of Ultron last night, but kind of a little bit of an icebreaker in order to kind of get things kicked off. Obviously, I figure we'll just go and around paddle, so it'll start to my right. I still hate these goddamn camera directions with Agnolo movie blogs, and then kind of just go around. Obviously, Joe, Casual Moviegoer, Elliot, and then back to Chris and me. So the first question that I have to pose to this panel today is, what is your first memory of Star Wars? And kind of to bounce off of that and further with that, what kind of does Star Wars mean to you personally? So starting with,
and we love to also know in the chat as well, you know, what was your guys' first memory with Star Wars? We want this to be as inclusive as possible, but we're going to throw it to our first guest here on YOLO Movie Blogs, man. First memory with Star Wars, dude.
First memory. Well, I didn't saw it in the cinemas because I was still very young, but my brother introduced it to me, and I just remember just being my mind blowing. At the time, we didn't have anything even close to it, not just in like special effects, but it was like the story of someone. I'm from Portugal, so I kind of like relate with Luke of living somewhere there's nothing to do, especially in that time. You guys are very lucky. Like you have cinemas, you have everything. I lived in a small town in Portugal that you probably get a movie. I probably could see Star Wars in the cinema because that's how behind we were. So when we saw like Luke and getting his opportunity to go away and get an adventure and to be meaningful, I think that's like why Star Wars means so much to so many people, because it's like an underdog story. So my first memory was that. It was like watching and thinking, oh, wait a minute, like I can get on a spaceship one day and just go somewhere a little bit different. So that was my first memory. Then I have memories that with my daughter and seeing her feeling the same way so many years later, and that just proved to me how powerful this story was.
Most definitely. Yeah. And that's the thing that I always loved about this franchise, and kind of I feel like something that the later movies would get away from, is the fact of Star Wars to me was always a story about kind of the little guy, the guy who kind of wanted to be a part of something bigger. And as the movies went on, it kind of got away from that. And that I feel like is a big part of why the movies to me have kind of lost something of what Star Wars has become. But we'll get into that later. Going next to Joe, Guyatthemovies. What is your first memory of Star Wars, and what does Star Wars mean to you personally?
Yeah, so my first memory of Star Wars is definitely going to be, I think, my father showing me the movies when I was growing up. I was born well after they came out, but it definitely, I remember watching them on this big screen that I had colored on with a crayon when I was younger. So trying to see the effects through the crayons was great. But, you know, my dad's a big Star Wars fan, and I think it also was the first fandom that I was really introduced to. And when I grew up knowing, like getting to know what fandoms were and what everyone was really pumped about, you know, Star Wars, the prequels came out at a time when I was really developing into a movie fan. So reliving all of what had come before with Star Wars and what we were seeing then, I think was pretty influential in, you know, wanting to understand kind of the arc of filmmaking, but also what made these movies such timeless classics for so many people.
Most definitely, yeah. And like I said, we'll kind of that I like the point that you brought up about kind of like the fan community aspect to it, because that's also another thing that I think has become very prevalent for both better and for worse with this past decade of Star Wars that we've had. But next, moving on to Ankit, the casual moviegoer, right below me. So, what is your first memory of Star Wars, and what does Star Wars mean to you? And please be as brutally honest as possible.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So my first experience is going to be a lot different from, I guess, most of the people in this chat. I didn't grow up with the original trilogy. Like I was born in India and I moved to Canada when I was 5. So I had no like chance to see the original trilogy back then. Not that I would have even appreciated it. So my first memory is actually one of the first movies I saw in Canada when I moved was The Phantom Menace. That was like one of the first big blockbuster movies that came out. So that was my first experience. And I was 6 or 7 years old. To me, I was like, fuck yeah. Like, oh, sorry, I forgot this is PG.
It's all good, man.
No, they usually allow just one. They usually allow just one.
All right. Yeah, so I was like, oh, yeah, this is awesome. I'm a 6-year-old. There's spaceships flying, there's lightsaber fights, there's Darth Maul. This is awesome. Obviously, as I grew older and I rewatched the original trilogy, I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe this could go in different directions. But yeah, that is my first experience. So I didn't watch the original trilogy until Revenge of the Sith was coming out. So by then I had already, my first experience with Star Wars was baked in as the episodes 1, 2, and 3. And in terms of how I feel about it, I guess we'll talk more about it as we get into it. But
that's good showmanship. I like that.
Yeah, if I can sum it up in one word, I would say it's something that is stuck.
Wow. Yeah, most definitely. And like I said, Chris, I didn't realize I didn't realize that this guy that you were bringing in was literally going to be my doppelganger. Because oh man, so many thoughts for me personally that just came out of your mouth right now. But like I said, I got to save myself for last. I'm putting my ego in check right here. So moving on to, yes, I got it. Elliot, Movie Files. What is your first memory of Star Wars, and what does Star Wars mean to you?
Yeah, no, it's almost similar story to the Casual Moviegoer in regards to I actually was introduced to Star Wars first via the toys because I was a big toy collector growing up, and I actually didn't know what Star Wars was until I got, for Christmas. I was around probably 10 or 9, so this was the 99, 2000, right around the Phantom Menace time. So I actually was introduced, via the Millennium Falcon, X-Wing toys, and then from there I went to explore the film. So and I didn't start with even though the time that I was introduced to the toys, I didn't start with the Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. I went back to the original trilogy and then kind of caught myself up from there. So it started with the toys as Star Wars was kind of intended for that type of market to, reach a smaller audience or younger audience in the toy industry. So started with the toys and never looked back. So it's a franchise that's been sticking with me for the better half of almost 20 plus years. So it's a franchise that left for a while, came back. We're now at a kind of an interesting spot, and again, we're going to break it all down. But yeah, it was the toys that got me into the universe first.
Most definitely, to say the least, we are in an interesting spot. All right, bringing it back. My co-host, my number one, my ride or die. Actually, would you be my number one or number two? You know what? I'm not going to get into that right now. Chris, what is your first memory of Star Wars, and what does it mean to you? I know you've told me a ton of times, and I know I know you so well at this point that I basically know it to death. But tell the rest of these people and the audience here.
Well, yeah. So for some reason, and I was too young to understand it at the time, I guess. But like my folks were like, listen, like you need to understand like what it is to create something that influences like a lot of people. So I lived in the Bronx when I was a little kid, and we had the street where everyone would sort of in the summer ride our scooters up and down the street, right? And so I remember being so upset because it was like a beautiful, like early spring night. The weather was probably like, 70 degrees, perfect. Because in the city, it's just blacktop. It gets hot. If any of you guys live in a city, you know that. So to have like a cool night is awesome. When you're a little kid, you hear kids playing outside your block. You're like, oh my God, all I want to do is go play with them right now. But my folks were like, look, like you need to watch these films, because not only are these films just going to resonate with you, but they're important because they've affected so many people, and you need to learn how, something someone did years ago can still affect people this day and age. And I didn't quite get that's what they were telling me at that point in time, but like they were like, these are powerful films, you need to watch this. So they kind of forced me to sit down and watch the Rocky films, the Indiana Jones films, like the big blockbuster classics. But the one that really consumed me was a little film called A New Hope. And I remember just like 20 minutes in, I'm just like, wait, are they still playing outside? And they were probably so loud, but I was just tunnel vision into that television. I could not believe it. So much so that up on my wall right there, I'm kind of plugged in, so I can't go grab it. But like, I begged my uncle to give me his original VHS collection, which is probably worth a lot of money. And he was like, I can't say no to this little kid. But he was kind of upset to give it up. But I was like, I need this. I need to watch it whenever I want. I can't just watch it when Uncle Niggy's here. You know what I mean? I need to watch it now. And so, yeah, I just like, since I was a little kid, man, I just like have loved these films, and they just like mean so much to me. Now, Dom, before we get to you, let's hit some of the chat real quick, because we got to save, save your ego for last.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. The chat comes first. This is where I will check my ego at the door.
But yeah, so obviously it means a lot to me. Just aside from like, if I disassociate the nostalgia, growing up, it's just always been something that's like, I'm like Ted Mosby. I could watch it when I'm sick, when I'm happy. You know what I mean? Whatever the case is. But so Sertone at the movies says his father took him to see Return of the Jedi. Okay. But since he was 4 years old, he doesn't remember it that much. But hey, you remember the experience, and you're here right now. So obviously you kind of still care about Star Wars a little bit to be here about a panel all about Star Wars. So that's cool, man. Happy to have you. Luck Reviews. His first memory is probably something with the Phantom Menace. First movie he saw in theaters was Force Awakens, though. Okay, I can see that. Yeah, Force Awakens brought a lot of new people to the fold, for better or for worse. But Perp Minded says he likes Star Wars growing up, but yeah, the movies don't have the same effect on him as an adult. I can see that. The magic's still there for me. Now, Dom, I kind of think I know what you're going to say, but you've kind of kept this a little close to the belt. In my opinion. So.
I have. So again, kind of to take you guys into a little bit of my brain so far, just kind of how my brain works growing up. My whole relationship with Star Wars has been interesting, to say the least, because I feel like it kind of incorporates kind of almost everything it is that all the different iotas of Star Wars fandom have appreciated. So yeah, I like the toys to a certain extent. What's it called? Obviously, yes, as you can clearly see, I am not 40 years old, so I was not obviously born in time to watch the original movies when they were in theaters. I was 2 years old when The Phantom Menace came out. You guys can do the math there for those of you who actually already know my age. And my whole thing, like I said, I don't remember specifically what was the first one I saw, but if I'm remembering correctly, it was my grandparents had the VHS tape of The Phantom Menace. And I watched it. I want to say I was like 5 or 6 years old at the time. You know, I would watch movies at their house all the time. I actually saw the original black and white King Kong with them. That's a very fond memory that I have. And for most of the movie, I was kind of just like, okay, you know, this is cool. I don't really know what's happening, but there's a lot of flashy visuals that are going on. You know, it's similar to someone else's thing. But all I remember is the minute that Darth Maul pulls down his hood and ignites that double-bladed lightsaber and Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan shoot their swords up. Don't make any crass jokes, YouTube comments. I'm like, oh man, I'm in. I don't know what this is, but these three guys are having like this is like the greatest thing that I've ever seen, you know? And I was hooked. And over the next couple of years, I would kind of bounce back and forth. You know, I would watch like random parts of different movies, but I never really like watched them in its entirety. Like I remember seeing bits of A New Hope. I remember seeing bits of Attack of the Clones. I remember seeing bits of Return of the Jedi. You know, like it was all kind of very hazy. But at a certain point, I want to say when I was like 10 or 11, we finally sat down and we watched all the movies. I think the order, if I'm remembering this correctly, was New Hope and Return of the Jedi, then Empire, then Attack of the Clones, and then we watched Revenge of the Sith the Christmas that it came out, because that was summer of 2005, but we didn't get the DVD until Christmas of 2005. And that was all fine and good, right? And I enjoyed kind of each one of those movies, but I didn't really like think it was like the greatest thing ever. I had a lot of other stuff that I was getting into at the time. I had a lot of other stuff that I really, really enjoyed. You know, I was the first Transformers came out when I was in 5th grade, and that was like the greatest thing that I'd ever seen. I grew up watching a lot of animation, so up until that point, Disney and Pixar were my go-tos. You know, like I liked Star Wars, but I wasn't really into the obsession with the fascination. The thing that obviously stuck with me, though, was that lightsaber fight at the end of Phantom Menace. Like, that was always the thing that I took from that. And then when I was in 6th grade, a little show hit the air called The Clone Wars. And I knew enough about the Star Wars fandom to understand that it was going to be filling in the gaps between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. And I'm like, okay, you know, this seems cool. I watched the movie in theaters. I didn't think anything of it. I think a lot of people still don't think anything of it. But to me, at least, you know, the whole thing and the magic of Star Wars to me comes from the fact that whatever the case may be, it doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter kind of, you know, what age group you're in. It doesn't matter what era you got into with it. I think there's a lot of scratching noise coming from there. It's okay. This is live. The whole,
yeah, there is.
The whole magic of Star Wars to me comes from the fact that what's it called? It's just something that you could sit down with and kind of any person of any age can enjoy it and get enraptured in it. And so I guess to me, I didn't really feel like kind of the magic of this franchise until it was sitting down every Friday night and Saturday morning, you know, because that was back in the DVR days, you know, and it was watching the pre-recorded episode from the night before of Star Wars: The Clone Wars with my brothers, and we would just get so enraptured in it because it was kind of just interesting storytelling, you know, like it didn't have like this grand overarching plot. It was just kind of like in the moment, it was a lot of action. It was a lot of flashy visuals, and kind of as we got older, you know, we kind of lost touch with it, but we kind of got back into it. You know, I re-binged the whole Clone Wars after it had done its original watch, and I understood. I'm like, oh, wow, this franchise kind of understands its audience in a way that I don't think any other franchise did, because what the Clone Wars to me did is that it did this absolutely incredible thing of where it actually matured with its audience. And that was something new to me. That was something I hadn't seen before. So flash forward a couple of years. I'm a freshman in college, and I see my first ever Star Wars movie in theaters, and I watched The Force Awakens, right? And I think it's safe to say that even with all the problems that everyone has with this new trilogy of movies, I think it's safe to say that The Force Awakens kind of struck a chord with a lot of people that they hadn't gotten in a very, very long time. And when I watched Force Awakens, I was like, okay, I get it now. I understand what it is that is so magical about this franchise. Needless to say, I don't think that feeling was maintained over the next 4 years, but even still, like that's kind of just my relationship with Star Wars. That's what that's kind of what it is to me, you know. And Sash, we will get to that question, but
yeah,
if we're being honest, though, I think you kind of already know the answer to that one. So kind of, yeah, like I said, I've got a very long and detailed history with Star Wars, but yeah, that's kind of my whole thing. So like I said, so we've kind of run the gamut. We've kind of run the caveat here. You know, we've got an original head. We've got a guy who got him because of the community. We got a guy who got him because of the toys. We got a guy who thinks a little bit similar to me, kind of got a little bit disillusioned with the franchise because of these most recent installments. I don't think you're the only one, considering the fact that I feel like that's a majority of the reason why so many people complain on the internet. At least when it comes to Star Wars, people complaining on the internet, that's just a whole thing that I don't know if we can necessarily solve. But so kind of throwing it over and kind of bringing up my next point. It's this idea of, like I said, we've just broken down all different facets of kind of what Star Wars means to different
Yeah, we got a nice
people.
mix here.
Yeah, a very, very nice diverse mix. And my whole thing that I'm wondering next is there any such thing as a casual Star Wars fan? Because at least to me, right, a casual fan is somebody who kind of just watches it. It's like, okay, you know, this is cool. I know it. You know, it's fun. But I don't need to know every little thing. But the thing about it is that when it comes to Star Wars, even the people who are kind of just like the casual fans, the casual watchers, like they're not just casual fans. Like in my mind, I don't think I've ever met like a casual Star Wars fan, you know? So like, help me break this down, you know, like kind of what kind of is like a casual fan of, if anything, and is there such a thing when it comes to Star Wars?
Yeah, Yolo, what's your take on that, man?
So in my opinion, I think there is. I think most of us sometimes, because we are so into our movies and stuff, don't realize. But for example, my daughter has a bunch of friends that goes with her to see Star Wars. They never saw any before, and they don't really care. They just go because it's the next big movie that's on the cinema. And then it's the question of what we call casual, because some of us that love the movies and saw them all, I would still say they're casual, because there's the books, there's the games, there's so much around Star Wars that even I don't know if I could say I'm not a casual one, because I never read the books. I saw the comic books, I read the comic books, but there's so much out there, like encyclopedias, like there's pages explaining like how the Death Star was built and what's the screws that was used to put it all together. There's so much there that I think some people would call us casual fans.
Yeah, most definitely.
There is a lot to consume. I think there's different levels. There's got to be different tiers to it, right?
Yeah.
Because, you know, like I play the video games, I read the comics, but I'm not sitting down to read the books. As much as I want to know what happens in that Ahsoka novel, I just can't put myself to sit down and read that book. But yeah, I mean, I guess like I haven't met anyone who's just like, yeah, I've seen the movies, they're cool. I haven't ever met that person. So I wonder if there's like that casual of a fan. I guess maybe your daughter's friends, like you just said, kind of are, but that just, I guess to me, maybe there's my bias showing. I don't know how you can't just get fully consumed by this, but Joe, man, like what's your take on all this, dude?
Yeah, I agree with Yola there. I also think that I think if you're just a movie fan and you're just a fan of the Star Wars movies and you are a casual Star Wars fan, just given all of the background and the history that's out there, meaning that, like you just mentioned, Chris, we have the books, we have the comics, we have the TV shows, the animated shows, all of that. There's a lot more there. So, you know, in the past, when we've talked about Rogue One or Solo or whatever film it is, saying that, oh, well, that makes more sense if you knew the background and you knew, you know, that this happened in the Clone Wars or that this happened in so-and-so book. Those people that have kind of an encyclopedic, is that how we say it?
Yeah.
Your guess is as good as mine.
We'll roll with that one.
Encyclopedic knowledge.
Yeah, there we go. That have that, I think, definitely are more than just the casual fan because they know it in and out. But for me, like, I consider myself a casual fan because I'm into the movies, and I obviously, like, I read a little bit more behind the scenes about, you know, what led them to do certain things. But even when we were on our last chat and we had Brando kind of talking about certain aspects of it, and I forget who else was mentioning sort of like, oh yeah, they explained that in the Clone Wars. That's great. But I'm casual enough that I don't know that because I don't watch the Clone Wars. I don't read the books. I don't read the comics.
Yeah. I can see that, I guess. But I mean, you still do go to all the movies opening night? Like, get the first weekend and whatnot?
Yeah, but I don't know that that's unique to Star Wars. I am an opening night person for a lot of films. So Thursday nights are my nights to go.
Yeah, I'll definitely give you that.
It's tough for all of us to kind of say because of what we do here on the internet. Yeah. You know, we kind of have to be on the up and up and catch it sooner. And I don't even know if we can sort of separate from that. But I guess as far as how invested we are into all this, maybe you are a little more casual than like me and Dom, because you know, being content creators, being like YouTube people, we kind of want to get there first, you know, see that film first so we can talk about it first and whatnot. So yeah, I mean, I could see that. You guys are kind of, I didn't really think that was possible, but again, there's my bias showing, and I'm not afraid to show it.
And bouncing off that point too, it's always interesting to me where kind of people on the internet, like I said, how we always have to be aware of the fact that we are in a bubble, even though I think there is more and more and more of us constantly popping up. We have to constantly remind ourselves that we are in a bubble and that not everyone looks at this stuff the way that I do. Like I'm always baffled whenever I just talk to like people in the store that I work at, and it's like that, but I'm like, I have to remind myself, like, guys, they're not on the internet. They haven't grown up with this stuff. You know, they grew up just like, you know, like regular people, just like going outside and stuff like that. Like they don't process this type of information the way that we do, you know. But Joe, I actually really did like the point that you brought up. God, I really got to figure out these goddamn camera angles. I really did like the point that you brought up, where kind of, you know, just the opening night person, where you're right. That actually is interesting because you're 100% right. At least for guys like us, like that gotta go opening night, that's not exclusive to Star Wars. You know, like I'm at the theaters at least before the quarantine set, I was at the theaters every single weekend. You know, it didn't matter what it was. I was catching something on opening night just for the fact of, you know, I'm lonely and I don't have anything to do on my Friday nights except to watch movies.
Oh God, Dom, I'm here for you, man.
That's a whole nother stream. That's a whole nother
podcast to be talking about. That's a whole
only
other
so many times you can watch Community, man. Hit me up, dude. I'm not too far.
There it is. There it is.
You have clearly underestimated my love for the show, dude. Season 5 almost done. Just got season 6 left. Boom. Anyways, Ankit. So kind of
31 minutes in.
Yes. Kind of what is your thought process on kind of this idea of the casual fan, you know, and when it comes to Star Wars, like kind of breaking down like what a casual fan versus what a diehard fan is versus like, is there even like a difference between like somebody, is it possible for somebody to just watch Star Wars and kind of just enjoy it versus like being so deeply invested that they're like, okay, I gotta know every nook and cranny. I don't just have to know how the Death Star plans were stolen. I have to know like what type of technology was used to make like the toilets that were serviced within the Death Star, you know?
Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah. So as echoing pretty much what everyone has said here, I definitely do think there are casual fans. And I think there's a big, there's a big case to be made that Star Wars would not exist if it wasn't for casual fans. Like any fandom, like even you can even count Marvel or DC in this. You know, like it's not just the fandom who are keeping those films alive. You know, it's the people who are buying rows of seats for all their kids, right, just to go and watch the movies. It's parents who are accompanying their kids. It is the casual people. When I went to see Rise of Skywalker, after I was done, and me and my friends were congregating outside and hating on the movie.
Were you pulling an Ahmed from the end of Community season 4 with telling people to not go watch Phantom Menace? Boom, that was for you, Joe.
I was preaching. No, we were just talking, and I saw my friend, and he was there on date night with his girlfriend, and I know for sure they haven't seen like any of the Star Wars movies before, or if they have, they're not fans in the slightest. But I think in the case of Star Wars is there are fans, and then there are like the fans, you know, like there are like that crop of people who you are like, I'm gonna stay away from you. You're a bit intense. So
I've run into a couple of those
We're
guys.
not all like that. It's
no, for sure.
We're not.
Those give us a bad name, though.
No, of course.
It's very
yeah. I think we should establish that now. If we're talking about fans, everyone knows when we're talking about those guys. We know who we're talking about. So
yeah.
So
they'll like not let you leave the booth if you're sitting next to them and you say something bad about Star Wars.
Yeah.
You gonna roll that back, or
like
you're not getting home.
Yeah. Like it reminds me of this guy. I was once at like a Comic-Con type deal in my hometown, and there was going to be a panel with Jason Momoa and a few other people. So I was talking with my friend, and I said Jason Momoa as his name, and this guy in front of me, you know, classic description of what a Star Wars fan might be, like burly dude, really pissed off, like neck beard, everything, right? And he just like turned around to me like slowly, and he was just like, "It's Mama," like how to pronounce his name properly. And I was just like,
"Really? Is there a
dude? There's like literally nobody here. Like nobody cares." So tangent. Yes, I believe there are casual fans, and I think casual fans keep the franchise alive. And Disney knows that, and that's why they build stuff like Star Wars Land, because it's not going to be like the crazy people who are going to go there. It's going to be the people who are just going because it's like, hey, it's here. It's in Disney World. Why not? Let's check it out. Right?
Yep. 100%.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Elliot, dude, what's your take on this whole
Yeah, no, I echo pretty much everything you guys have said in regards to, yeah, there's definitely a fandom in regards to just a casual fan that checks into the movies. Like me personally, like Joe had mentioned, I haven't dove deep into the lore of the comics, the books, nor the cartoons. Something I want to get into, but a lot of stuff that I want to watch and catch up on. But The Mandalorian is definitely kind of the thing that really got me into the TV world of Star Wars. And maybe we'll talk about that later in regards to the future of Star Wars. But yeah, in regards to just that casual fan, I think they're out there. And I think like, Casual Moviegoer said, I mean, they're the ones that make the movies, you know, especially in this last iteration of this era, this new era we're in, making $1 billion per film, except for, you know, Han Solo. And that's an interesting conversation of where were the fandoms then and where was the need for Star Wars to be as big as we know it is. So there's definitely something there that, you know, the money shows. But yeah, I think that, you know, without the casual fan, we wouldn't be getting this continuation of the next generation of Star Wars. And I can't wait to break down that conversation in regards to the different eras of Star Wars in regards to original trilogy, the prequels, and now where we're at now and what that looks like in the future. So I definitely believe there's a casual fan out there and not everyone's as invested in the universe. They just like to go, like Young Lo said, like to go on this journey with the characters. And once that journey is over, they go about their casual lives and wait for the next one to come out.
Yeah, definitely. Well said, man. And hashtag justice for Solo. But the thing is, you know, I think that's a whole nother debate on the intense fandom versus like the respectful fandom, because I think it's kind of gotten out of hand. I think the ability to tweet at creators and sort of kind of like, because if I was making a film, I know people are going to be tweeting at me day and night. I would sort of turn my phone off because I want my vision to be seen and heard. And, you know, if you like it, you like it. If not, then you don't like it. But I feel like there's like this wall where, oh my God, people are tweeting, they saw a production photo and they hate it. We have to change everything now. And I feel like that's really starting to affect a lot of productions, especially in this nerd fandom. Like we have like Wikipedia. There's like a Marvel one, I know for sure. I don't know the little fun thing they call it. Like every big fandom has like pages and pages and pages you can read on the internet. And so like, you know, like fans are empowered now with knowledge. They can really go deep and learn everything about their franchise, but almost to a fault where it gets aggressive. So like, I think there's definitely such thing as a casual Star Wars fan. You guys kind of, I mean, I was just kidding about my bias. Obviously, I know that, you know, we're putting on a show here, but I think that you guys kind of opened my eyes up to the fact that there's like the respectful casual fan and then the super aggressive casual fan. And I think it's a shame that kind of one sort of ruins it for the other one. But yeah, I think that's another conversation in and of itself, but that's my take on it, because to echo what you guys have been saying would just be wasted time here on the live show. You guys kind of all nailed it, I think. But Dom,
to bounce off that point, actually, it's kind of a double-edged sword because, again, first off, Joe, I love that you brought that that little thing. I mean, you're wrong, obviously, but I like that you put that up. But the other thing that I wanted to bring up, and again, I'm going to keep doing it literally every single chance I get. I don't even care about it being a running joke on anymore. But the thing that a lot of I've been watching, you know, those community interviews that Variety has been doing, and one of the interesting. Sorry, I had to. No, but seriously. So the interesting thing, obviously, that Dan Harmon and a lot of the cast
about.
Yeah. Joe can tell them afterwards. So the point being is that a lot of the things that the cast brought up is now Dan Harmon was so tapped into the kind of the Twitter stratosphere that like a lot of the fans would actually bring up really interesting ideas that would kind of like help the story creation. And that's something that I feel, if anything, I feel like Disney has kind of done a disservice in not taking advantage of that, because yes, it's a double-edged sword, because you obviously don't want to make the fans think that they're controlling the productions of movies, because obviously that's not how production of movies works. But at the same time, it's like, I do think that there is a big missed opportunity when it comes to the casual fans who are, in my opinion, like trying to point them in the right direction of like, okay, you have this massive canon of interesting stories and like that introduce all these different ideas of kind of where you could take this franchise, you know? And so to my mind, at least, I almost kind of have to side with those casual fans when they're bringing up ideas that are constantly like, it's almost like the movies are afraid to tackle, you know, like I get it. That's diving into like the business side of things. And I get it. You know, Disney has a bottom line that they need to fill, and Star Wars is such a huge brand at this point that they're going to make their money regardless, obviously, with the exception of Solo. But it's just, I find that so fascinating because it's like, yeah, the toxic fans, they ruin it for everybody. But the thing that everybody forgets is that they are pretty much a vocal minority. And I think that a majority of the people that I've run into personally have been just like, again, the word is kind of a double meaning at this point, but kind of the fans that are into it in a really positive way and actually like are disappointed, not because they didn't get what they wanted per se, but they're disappointed because they felt like the story could have been so much better than what they got, you know? And that's another thing of why I kind of want to bring it back and kind of why I am a little bit angry, specifically at the criticism that went towards The Last Jedi. Of course, hold on. I had to open up that can of worms that everyone can start throwing things at me. But before I kind of go around and get everyone's thought process on that, my whole thing of what pissed me off most about specifically the fan response to The Last Jedi. Forget the criticism, you have your own thoughts on that movie, whatever. I personally think that there are parts of that movie that work really well, but overall, the movie itself is very, very sloppy and not well put together. But my problem was that, and kind of what really made me aware of like, oh, wait, so this is what toxic fandom is. Because up until that point, I was just mostly attributed. It's just people making dumb comments on the internet. Whatever, go about your day. There's more to do. But that it was at the point where they were like starting to force like the celebrities off of Twitter just so that they could get a break and actually get some breath in their real life and understand, oh, wait, all these people just constantly hurling awful insult after awful insult after awful insult at me. Like, I'm sorry. Like, Rose Tico being an uncompelling character is not a justifiable excuse to throw like awfully, horrifically racist and very insensitive comments at Kelly Marie Tran, the actor. And that was what was baffling me, because I'm like, okay, by doing that, you're invalidating the people and the fans who both A, actually liked the movie, and also B, may not have liked it, but had I thought some legitimate concerns, because now you're making all of us sound like that, because it's the same problem that I have with the Snyder fans, where they are just they're such a minority, I think, within the overall fan base, but because they are so vocal about their opinions, it kind of overshadows all the rational minded people, when it kind of also
that's
a problem.
That's something I'm glad that you're saying that, because that's what I wanted to jump in with. I do think that, what we're seeing is there are fans that are toxic in every fandom, not only Star Wars, not only DC, not only Marvel, not only Harry Potter, even though I haven't seen Harry Potter Toxicity, but that would be kind of weird. But, there are
the Fantastic Beasts stuff.
Oh, I have. But, that the problem is, and it's funny because I've been having this conversation with the whole Snyder Cut thing, and like everyone knows here that I'm looking forward to it and hopeful for it, but I'm not like out there trying to destroy people on the internet who don't agree with me, or, someone that might be pumped for, I don't know, something that I'm not happy about, and trying to like pull the rug out from under them and tell them why they shouldn't like it. And I think that that's what we're starting to see, is that if there is one negative person in a fandom or someone that takes it too far, suddenly everyone is toxic. Suddenly the Star Wars fans are crazy. And like, I'm the first one that uses Star Wars in a cavalier way to say, Star Wars fans eat their own. But it's the same with every fandom that we're seeing right now, is that and it's the same in society, if you want to really take it up a notch, but it's the small minority that really makes it, or like gets highlighted, and the perception on them and the view on them is what then becomes the basis for the views on the entire fandom. And that's not right. It's totally not right.
So can I jump in there?
Absolutely.
Yeah, go for it, man. Go for it.
Are you sure? Okay, I don't want to interject. So I totally agree that it's bad to like label kind of the whole mass by the actions of few. Again, going back to the whole society conversation, but
I was about to say, what is the Joker?
But when you look at what happened between The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker, that vocal minority influenced what happened in The Rise of Skywalker. Like, they completely retconned everything that was planned. Like, they got rid of the director's vision because they were so scared of that vocal minority. That's why, like, I almost imagine like Star Wars, the diehard fans are separate from other fandoms, because the creators are scared of them. Like when you look at Marvel, when Black Panther was coming out, when Captain Marvel was coming out, people went out there, they started doing the review bombing. Oh, black characters, women characters. Like, they had an issue with that too. But Marvel came out right at the gate and they were like, this is our future. Our future is going to be more diverse. They've announced more LGBT characters. They've announced Shang-Chi, which is trying to capture the Black Panther magic, but with the Asian community. So they've come out and said, if you don't like this, you're on your own, right? So that was kind of what I was hoping for Disney to do, because Disney owns Marvel. They did it there. But there's something with the Star Wars fans. They were like, we can't piss off these people. And then you just validate their aggression, And I know you said, like, it got really bad now. It's been bad for a while, Like Ahmed Best, Jar Jar Binks tried to commit suicide.
You're right.
He tried to commit suicide.
100%. All the problems with Jake Lloyd, too.
Jake Lloyd, yeah, exactly, right. So back in the day, like they've been hateful ever since the day, and they've just gone stronger and stronger. And now they were like, we had our voice heard, and we changed the last movie. Let's let's go all the way. It's going to get even worse and worse from here.
But I guess just to go back to that real quick, and I don't want to cut anyone else off, but whose fault is that at the end of the day? If they've been able to grow more influential, is that the studio or is that the individuals that are, still out there and still trolling and still doing whatever? Because as you said, it was the same back when, Jar Jar was blessing our screens. And so if they see that the studio is going to react to whatever they want, then what does that hold in the future for the state of creative movies if they're not going to follow through with a vision?
Well, and if we go back to the Snyder Cut stuff, like there's going to be a huge wave of people now who are like, our voices can influence movies. So I do think there's going to be creative clashes in the next coming years. Like people already talking about a David Ayer cut for Suicide Squad,
Yeah, I saw that.
I've heard that.
And let me tell you this. What Satch's saying right now is kind of what I was trying to say. Like, you just have to turn it all off. You have to just follow your creative heart. There's a reason you're getting hired to make a giant blockbuster film. Someone believes in your creative vision. And with this toxicity on the internet, like, you could literally DM, like, let's just, Zack Snyder, you could literally DM him and like throw him a suggestion for this new Justice League film. If he clicks on that DM, he reads it and he's seeing your feedback. I think that's terrible. I want the reason why he's been, sort of out there saying like, give me this cut for so long. Like, I want that vision. I don't want it to get tainted, but this is the world we live in now. And it's just, it blows my mind. I don't think anyone really who maybe not an actor, but then their character can still get shaped by that. But I think if you're a creative person, like at least if I was a director, a producer, whatever, I wouldn't be on the internet. I know it's good for my personal brand, but I mean, my art is the reason why I even have a personal brand, right? So you got to separate the two and you got to focus on your vision. But this is like, could you imagine having, like, George Lucas never thought people would be having this kind of conversation about art. Isn't this absurd?
It's part of the reason why he just wanted to distance himself from the brand, because it's like, yeah, I created something and all people do is complain about it and blame me for it. Why would I? It was like one of the responses he had when somebody asked him if he would ever make it to the Star Wars movie. He's like, why the hell would I do that? I already had to sit through the prequels, and I'm now seeing what happened after I sold my property to Disney. You actually think that I would want to get involved with that kind of level of toxicity again?
And that's That's kind of why I always just try to, and I'll let you go next, Joel. This is going to be quick. I always just try to, when I'm on the internet giving my commentary, I don't think I'm a critic. I think I'm a commentator. I always say it's my opinion. This is just what I think. If you agree with it, sure. If you don't, that's fine. But I never try to bring toxicity to it. I think we need more of that, because it's really become, like, you guys kind of just took us in this direction of quite like an aggressive subject. The way these people make it aggressive is also just upsetting, because it's art. Art's supposed to be a release, an escape. We're supposed to enjoy it. We're supposed to go to it after a long day of work to relax, to hang out with a friend, to just get some downtime. But it's just frustrating to see how it's like gotten here. I hope we can fix it. I don't know if we will, but yeah, Yolo, my apologies, my friend. What were you going to say about all this?
Yeah, I think the problem is even deeper. I think it's all our faults, to be honest, because these guys get together to hate on things. But when we love, or at least respect, we don't bother. We just don't want to get in the confusion and getting in the arguments. It's the same of going to a restaurant. If you have a horrible meal, you'll be all over writing about it and saying it was horrible. If you have a good meal, you probably will not say this was amazing and thank you and stuff. And I think it's all our problems, because I still want to believe that the people that are respectful are still a bigger number than the people that hate. But we don't get together and we don't get on these tweets that people start hating. Because look, it's very easy. I work with social media. If you go to these accounts that are being haters and they get 1 million reports that this guy is breaking rules and this and that, Twitter or any other social media will block the account. But we don't bother. We don't want to put the energy in that. And these guys, like that, I still think are amateur haters, because when the first Batman came out and everyone wanted to complain about Michael Keaton, they had to write letters, they had to go to the post office, they had to buy stamps, and they had to send it. Those are people that really hate something. These people now just get on Twitter, they just write something, and then everyone reads it, and just a few will probably stand up and defend. Because these creators, if they saw that there's millions of people behind them saying, look, I didn't like what you did, but at least you gave it a shot. And I think that's the problem with Star Wars that Marvel doesn't have. Marvel has someone behind them that doesn't give a crap. He will do what he believes is right. And he will stand by the creators. He might sometimes don't agree with the creators and try and change some things, but he still goes by his vision. Star Wars, they change it because they don't feel that there's a community that's defending them. And I think that's all our faults, because we don't want to, because maybe we have common sense and we are educated and we don't want to be shouting with people. But sometimes we need to stand for something. If we saw someone being attacked on the street, we would probably stand up and defend them. But because it's on the internet, it's not visual. I think sometimes we separate and say, "Oh, look, like just don't care about it. Don't pay attention." And I think it's all our faults, because we think there's no point and it's just a couple of people. But words, hey, like really hurt. And I think we as a community, and I see everyone's content that is made here, and everything you said is exactly how I see. Look, we all saw, like, I don't know, what's the name of Netflix, the last movie, Lovebirds. We all saw it, but like, even if I don't like it, I don't need to go all over the internet. Oh, don't watch it. Don't watch. Like, some people might like it. I don't care. I didn't like it. Someone might like it. I like pixels. I'm probably the only person in the world that loves pixels. Me and my daughter, we think it's funny. Like, so we don't care. Like, we thought it was funny. We love Pac-Man. Who cares? And people just really like take it as an insult. You don't like Star Wars, so you don't like me. And that's what's the problem here. We need to separate things. What we like is not who we are. And we need to like be able to defend other people and stand behind them.
And Big J, I want to vote for you for president.
Right,
man.
I was about to say.
For real, man. Drop the mic. Oh my God, that was incredible.
Straight
Shed a tear, man. God damn.
There you go.
Yeah,
No, but
wow.
you actually brought up a lot of really great points, and I'm actually really happy that you did, because you're right. What everything that you just said is kind of exactly kind of a lot of problem that I've had with kind of what criticism has become. Right? I know Chris said he's a commentator, but I do consider myself a critic, only because but I think kind of the idea of what criticism is has kind of been lost, right? But that's also dealt with like my own perceptions of criticism, because to my understanding, what I always thought that criticism was is like, okay, you're not just saying that something's just good or something's just bad. You're saying it's good and it's bad, and here's why. Not for the purposes of just spewing all this toxicity and just getting a bunch of hate rant out and just getting like clearly getting something out of your system in a very unhealthy way, but kind of to break down exactly what it is that's wrong about it, why it doesn't work for a specific reason, in order to try and educate someone, in order to try and make someone kind of understand, in order to try and enlighten them, make them think about something in a way that they didn't before. Similar to what movies are supposed to do in my mind. You know, like that's why I love movies. Movies to me are are like a think piece. They're like some of the best teaching tools that you can get. You know, stories. How many times have we heard like the same story told over and over again throughout generations, like going all the way back to like the Greek myths times, but like all the stories held back those little morals, kind of those immortal truths that would like influence generations of people, you know, just based on them. You know, it really is astounding. And I always saw criticism as kind of the extra level of that, you know, just kind of being like, okay, in order to kind of not keep stories in check, but kind of make sure that they can continue to go on, you know, because I feel like, in my opinion, without criticism, movies would have died out a long time ago. But it always kills me when kind of people are like, oh, screw the critics. They don't know what they're talking about, you know, with the audience reaction, and just how far it has fallen. You know, where it's kind of almost taken like taking this twisted route where now, because they have to cater to certain people in order to satisfy their quotas and in order to all get paid, they really are. It's kind of the same problem that I have with the news, right? Where they're not really actually telling you something in order to try and educate you and make you more informed. They're just trying to be as entertaining as possible in order to get as many views on them. And that's kind of, I feel like it all ties in with the kind of this overall level of toxic feelings that we're dealing with, you know?
But yet again, it's our fault, because if they do the straight news, majority of people won't watch it. If they do, like, people say, like, for example, people say we don't do original movies. Last year we had Ad Astra, that was one of the best movies I saw in a long time.
Yep.
What did it do in the box office?
Yep.
Nothing.
Yep.
It was a huge budget. People didn't went and see it.
Yep.
And then people complain, oh, we don't get original movies. Bro, I'm going to be honest. If I was Disney, I would have remade every movie every 5 years, because people will still see it. Not people like us, but majority of people. I talk with my friends, and if I say, oh, you need to watch this movie. Oh, when did it came out? Oh, 2000. Oh my God, that's really old. I'm not watching that. So that's why they remade, like Parasite. People won't watch movies because they're in a different language. There's no way around it. Like, we can complain all we want, but reality is most people don't want to read. they don't read the tweet because it's too long. Are they going to read the whole movie? No, they don't care. So that's why they do these crappy like remakes and make loads of more money. And that's the reality. And we need to accept it and try and find ways around it. But that's why like people say, oh, it's only comic book movies out. Look, last year we had 890 movies that came out. 16 were comic books. 16 out of 800. So it's not, but that's what people go and see.
Yeah.
And
you know,
realize that.
I think you guys are all 100% right. I just think social media creates this energy where the buzzwords that are negative, the buzzwords that go against something, that make something feel stupid, feel silly, feel isolated, those are the ones that win. Rarely do I ever see something positive about art circulating out there, getting traction. Like, and that's not what I don't want to do that, you know? Does that mean we never succeed here with all of our missions on the channel since we want to be positive? It's really a terrible thing. And I don't understand it because you're right. Ad Astra, I didn't really like that film, but I appreciated it for trying to bring something different, you know, and Parasite as well. What an awesome film. And people were turned off from watching it just because like it was in a different language. I mean, how do we fix this though? You know,
I remember
it's so frustrating.
I remember one of the things I heard about Uncut Gems was that it was too loud and there were too many people talking at once. I wanted to punch somebody in the face after I heard that. I'm like, are you kidding me?
But
Elliot, man,
even in our content, like the Casual Moviegoer, what's the video that you got more like views? I'm gonna bet it was the one you said I'm quitting Star Wars.
No, for sure. Yeah, it is those buzzwords, right? It's that it's that hot take.
And
it's not even that you said that in like a negative way. You were just saying like you respectfully quit Star Wars, but still that has like a negative connotation. You're walking away from something instead of like kind of diving into it more. So like people were just all about that for some reason. I don't get it, man. You know, like I could tell everyone in the world how much I love Superbad. I guarantee you the video would get like 8 views. You know, and then just be me saying like, I love this film. I think it's a fun coming of age story, but people don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear how much you like something. And it's just unsettling. It frustrates me to no end, to be honest with you.
Although I am glad that A24, if you like, it seems like their profile is rising a lot in terms of original movies. Like every day, every new trailer comes out, I see more and more of the comments like, this is what we want. Like I'm seeing that trend kind of rise back up. So I think it's cyclical, right? Original movies, then you want the adaptations, and then you want the originals again.
But again, A24, the box office doesn't show it. It's ridiculous. Like their top movie made $90 million. Like
that's the budget of like some of the blockbuster movies.
That's what any superhero movie does in the first like preview or something.
In the first in the first day.
Yeah,
like that's what it does. Yeah, but so I actually kind of wanted to bring that around and kind of intersect it because actually, what you brought up about kind of the box office, right, and the blockbuster, how that is the defining kind of model for a movie success. I think though that we're forgetting one big factor that has come in terms of defining movie success, and that is streaming, obviously, and especially now that the corona has effectively shut everything down, shut the economy down, and streaming is seeing a bigger boom than it has ever had before. Kind of. How that like do you obviously now we're still very much at the point where obviously the thing that as of right now defines movie success are the box office numbers, and we've discussed all the factors that go into that. But because streaming, obviously, it's a very different model for success, and because it allows for a lot more room when it comes to experimentation. I'm just wondering, could you see something like that eventually coming to dominate the model? And also how that ties back into Star Wars. You see what it did with The Mandalorian. The Mandalorian, the first live action Star Wars TV show, direct to a streaming service, and it's arguably probably the most amount of positive reaction that we've gotten to a Star Wars property since The Force Awakens, probably, or even if you want to go before that, since the original Star Wars trilogy. Granted, the reasons for said positive reaction, maybe not the reasons that we would like, but still, like that to me, that's got to speak for something. Elliot, we haven't actually heard from you in a little bit. What's kind of your whole take on that?
Well, to go back to the fandom conversation, just a little bit, and then I'll answer your question, Don, in regards to, I always look at the fandom as like, I don't know if you guys grew up in sports or watch sports, but I grew up playing sports growing up. So criticism is something that I've always grew up with and kind of tough skin or whatever the case may be. So I think the way that we should, kind of like Onyelo said, embracing the positivity, embracing these actors that put themselves out there, and also understanding too, not to be cynical, but when you are a actor, director, big studio, whatever the case may be, you put yourself out there to have that type of criticism. But again, it's to distinguish between criticizing something for what the art was and not criticizing the person for what they're doing and being hateful and being nasty and, degrading them. So there's definitely that line that needs to be made in the sand and understanding that. But again, like I said, I look at the fandom now as like sports fans. They can be very passionate about their favorite teams, Tom Brady, the Lakers, whatever the case may be, Yankees, and then you have the Red Sox. So that's how I look at movie fans now. It's like they're sports fans. They literally, they will hate you, they will love you, everything in between. So to answer your question about streaming, Dom, honestly, man, it might be a hot take, but the future of Star Wars, in my opinion, is on streaming, is on television. And the reason I kind of looked at Star Wars as episodes, episode 1, 2, I've always looked at Star Wars as a format that is perfect for TV. And I think that I haven't watched Clone Wars or watched the Rebels, but I love The Mandalorian. I can't wait to see what they do with the future of The Mandalorian, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and all the series that they announced. But I see the future being more formatted for a TV format breakdown in regards to what we're getting on the big screen. So I think that the Disney Plus platform is just the beginning of something for the future.
Yeah, the one thing I've always kind of said about Star Wars is like we live in this galaxy far, far away, yet we're so concerned with this one family. It's a whole galaxy.
Yeah.
There's an outer rim, there's the main sector, there's these icy planets, and also why do we only ever have the same 3 landscapes? Snow, winter, cityscape. You know what I mean? Like, let's see something more. And I was not the biggest fan of The Mandalorian. The whole procedural thing just isn't for me. But one thing it did do was sort of show you the small scale. Not everything is this giant galactic conquest. You know what I mean? There are real people having small stories in this big galaxy far, far away. And yeah, I think as long as it can save where Star Wars is going, because I think it is very much so in a bad place. Again, we're not quite there at this point in the conversation, but I think I have to say it to get this point out. I think if TV can sort of keep giving us those sort of like more human stories, those more human aspects of this galaxy far, far away, I think we kind of need to get back to relating to this franchise to A, sort of dwindle down on the toxicity around it, and B, just reconnect with it again as viewers. I know that the charm of The Mandalorian, the small scale of The Mandalorian got me to go back and read the comics and play the video games. Not because I thought the show was amazing, but because it struck a chord with me for the first time in a while, where I was like, okay, we can still have some of the magic that I had as when I was a little kid. It's not all just because I grew up and it's gone. Because I was starting to think that for a little while with this new trilogy, at least. So yeah, I think it could be on the small screen. I think though its main focus is the big screen. And I think if they don't clean that up, they are in trouble. Again, that's for a little bit later in the conversation. But yeah, I like what you're saying, Elliot, and I think that is a good take. But again, it kind of all comes down to, will they get in the way of Filoni or not?
Right. And I'm actually really glad that you brought that up. Like the whole idea of Star Wars doing these more kind of personal human stories, bringing it back to what it is that made Star Wars so relatable and so magic to a lot of people in the first place, which is that, to me at least, Star Wars had already been doing that on TV for like 12 years before The Mandalorian even came out. Obviously it's just, the difference between, obviously because Mandalorian is the first live action Star Wars show, people are going to give that a lot more credit because, it's real people and stuff. But to me, at least, and to me, why I think I personally enjoyed the magic of Clone Wars and now Rebels. I finished the first season of a couple episodes into season 2 now. Struck a chord with so many people kind of stringing the distance in between kind of the prequels and the new movie, which is that, to me at least, the Clone Wars and Rebels animated TV shows brought it back to what it was that Star Wars was originally, which is these small scale, very personal, very human stories. Yeah, it was very episodic, and yeah, it didn't necessarily have this kind of overarching grand scale story, but you kind of didn't need that, because seeing what they were able to do with kind of telling these very human stories and also very mature stories too, for an animated kid show, it was impressive to say the least. And so I'm really glad that kind of those two shows kind of set the boundaries for what Star Wars could do on the TV realm, because you're right, Chris, if Filoni has always shown that, with the first seasons of his shows, they usually are much more so kid-friendly, but they get a lot more mature as things goes on. And if he can bring what he did with both Clone Wars and Rebels and bring that to The Mandalorian, I am very, very excited for what happened, for what the future of Star Wars is when it comes to TV. What are kind of the rest of your guys' thoughts on that whole thing?
So, in my opinion, the streaming, the problem is it doesn't get the prestige in kind of in a way. Like there's so much things on streaming that The Mandalorian comes out the first week, everyone binges it, and we have all this fuss about it, and then 1 week, 2 weeks later, no one talks about it, and that's kind of I think they need the cinema experience to kind of set the pace of still being relevant. Things like Game of Thrones, that you got an episode every week and created that buzz, it's something we're not going to see probably on TV anytime soon. Now people just want to see them all, and they're done with it. And the lessons they're going to take out of it, Disney, you like Mandalorian, we all talking about how good it was. I'm betting they don't give a shit. They just sorry about they just care about Baby Yoda and how many toys they can sell of Baby Yoda. That's what they're gonna take out of it. So that's what they're gonna be focusing on. They're always trying to focus on the next big toy that they can take. Because whatever we talked about of how much it does on streaming, how much it does in the box office, George Lucas proved that the real value was in the toys, and it was like in stuff like that. So they need that like cinema experience to get all the new kids excited about it and to go and buy the toys and stuff. And I think streaming doesn't do that. I don't think it's the same kind of magic. No one is watching the streaming show and going nuts about it. So they need to fix the part of the movies. And I think now with the news of getting some new talents to take it to new ways, to new paths, it's one of the solutions. And the TV then is just gonna help between the movies keep the excitement. And I think that's the same Marvel is doing. They need something to keep people excited between like the one movie and the other. But I don't think it's going to replace the movie experience. I like the big that we're waiting 2 or 3 years to see the next movie. I think it's important to create this kind of magic in the Star Wars universe.
Okay.
Yolo, I think you just brought up a great point about the toys, because that gets to the business aspects of why so many stories and intents behind where they're taking different franchises have been jettisoned and redirected. It goes back to Force Awakens when Rey was first proposed to be the main character. The big concern was that a female main character would not sell toys. You go to the Power Rangers reboot, and that was a crappy movie, but it did okay, because they sold a ton of toys, and that's where they made their money back, and it wasn't a failure. So we're talking about more than just putting a good movie on the screen right now. We're talking about all the business that's tied to it, the DVD sales, the Blu-ray sales, the Steelbook sales, the collector editions, whatever it's going to be. And that's why we're seeing a separation between the creative energy of let's deliver a story that is true to Star Wars, or let's deliver a story that is true to DC. Marvel I'm leaving out because they're a very well-oiled machine at this point. But it's that whole discussion of you bring in creatives to take things to a certain level, but they're only given so much rope, because at the end of the day, if they don't make the money, the studio doesn't want to continue down that path. They're going to totally reverse it. So that's a big concern moving forward. I like streaming because I think it gives them a test tube, so to speak. Exactly. It is a place for them to try things out. And we talked about this on the Solo watch. Would Solo have been a movie, a standalone, if Disney Plus was around at this point? Because maybe they could have tried this, side story or this background origin story in a series and seen if it worked, or seen if certain characters worked, and then take them to the big screen instead of wasting or blowing the budget on whatever they did with Solo and the issues that they had. So I guess this goes back to kind of the rant I just did in the in the comments a few minutes ago, but we want to look at this and say we want to see a creative story, and we want to see the stories done justice. But that's not what the majority of studios are looking at today. The studios want to make money. And if that means that they have to reverse course on certain things, they're going to continue to do that. And unfortunately, I'm not sure that that's going to lead to the Star Wars fandom being thrilled in the future, unless they allow the creatives to really take off with it.
Yeah, I agree. And it's actually funny that you mentioned like studios reversing course, because I'm wondering though if, like I said, not just us fans, but like regular people are going to get so turned off by studios constantly reversing course over and over and over again that might end up affecting their bottom lines and their box office. But Ankit, what's kind of your whole take on this?
Yeah, so are we still talking about streaming or toys or
everything? Just everything. Kind of what your thoughts on it all?
Yeah, so I haven't watched The Mandalorian, to go back to my point of quitting the franchise. Like I went cold turkey. Like I haven't seen Mandalorian. I haven't watched the Clone Wars. Like I'm out. But yeah, like I definitely agree that nothing will replace the cinematic experience for Star Wars. It is a event movie, so they need that kind of event feeling to, again, sell more merchandise, create that hype, because that's going back to the casual fans. That's where they will get more money, is if people start seeing the more and more commercials and, okay, we need to go and see this in the theaters. I get it. Okay, it's not a streaming movie. But I do think streaming plays the part in changing that mindset for the fans. You know, it's, from what I understand about The Mandalorian, it's completely separated from the Skywalker story. It's its own thing. It's creating new stories, a new fan base. And I think that's where they will slowly build up more and more fans, so that eventually, if they do release a new movie that is wildly different from the original trilogy, they will have a strong fan base who will support it. And they almost get confidence in themselves. Disney, they get confidence in themselves that they can expand this further.
Absolutely, yeah. And I'm actually really glad you brought that up, because, and also to bounce off of Yola's point about the whole Game of Thrones thing, is that, so yes, one of the things, I'm in a couple other Facebook groups, and one of the things that I've heard that I actually do agree with, that I think is a big missed opportunity that they had this past decade with these movies, is not relying on kind of TV in order to kind of expand on and fill in the gaps for their movies. But the one caveat that I'll say is, up until this point, at least for Disney, they didn't really have anything to do that with. You know, they didn't really have a service like it. They didn't have a Disney Plus until like less than 6-7 months ago. You know, like that's how new Disney Plus is. So, and up until this point, you know, yeah, Amazon and Hulu were a thing and they were getting recognized, but like up until this point, the only streaming service that people really knew about or really gave a shit about was Netflix, you know? And so kind of the whole thing with Disney Plus coming into the game is Disney Plus really did set the game, and is like the marker, and is like, okay, now Netflix, which up until this point was pretty much dominating this game, like kind of completely undercutting the movie theater experience, now they have competition. Now they're providing competition. And to kind of bounce off the Game of Thrones point, is that, to me at least, first off, like I said, The Mandalorian was not following the Netflix model, which they were not releasing all, you know, which is the same thing that Amazon and Hulu were doing with their episode, where they would just release all their stuff at once, you know, so that everyone could binge it in a day, you know, kind of creating the movie-going experience within episodic television. Mandalorian was doing it and bringing it back to how HBO is still doing, which is where they did the episode a week. And now, obviously, it's a first season, so obviously, if something ever wants to get to, like, that Game of Thrones level where everybody in the world is talking about it, you know, every single week, it still has a little bit of ways to go. But at least for what I was seeing with the traction that The Mandalorian was getting, yes, it was still very apparent that it's like, yes, the Baby Yoda thing, selling toys, that was a huge appeal, right? But at least the traction that I was seeing, I'm like, okay, I could at the very least see this going in a direction where, similar to what Ankit was saying, where this could kind of provide the backbone that the movies are missing, because this, to me, proves that, okay, you could now have a situation where if you were to kind of bring something over from the TV side into the movie side, you know, and you wouldn't have that vast disconnect that a lot of people I felt like you were having before. You know, like you want to bring it back to a Rogue One talk. You know, Saw Gerrera, obviously I recognize him, you know, because I know that character from the Clone Wars, but who in the hell casual audience is going to know who that guy is? You know, they're just like, it's Forrest Whitaker. Yeah, exactly. It's a Forrest Whitaker doing a crazy accent with that giant tentacle thing in the corner. I have no idea what the hell's going on or who that guy is, you know, but now I feel like Disney has an opportunity to do something that they haven't had before. And it's interesting because for the first time ever, Marvel is not going to be the trendsetter here that everybody has to follow. If anything, Marvel is kind of following what, if Star Wars does this right, will have kicked off, where Marvel is going to now also have their TV shows running simultaneously with their movies, and they're going to be able to jump and pull characters from each one. You know, Scarlet Witch was supposed to bounce right from WandaVision into Doctor Strange too, you know, and it was also going to tie in with the Loki miniseries, you know, but Star Wars, I think, has that opportunity to do that now, where Taika Waititi obviously being announced to direct the next Star Wars movie. And a lot of people, you know, they're obviously, everyone knows him as Korg, you know, and I think a lot of people, you know, Jojo Rabbit also being now a Disney movie, I think that helped, but that's a whole different thing that, you know, we'll see how that goes down the road. But I think if enough people could recognize him as like, oh, wait, wasn't that the droid from The Mandalorian? You know, like, I'm just saying, like, those are the types of possibilities that we have now, that Disney has now, that they really didn't before, because up until 6-7 months ago, they didn't. There was no possibility for like that other than Netflix, and Netflix had already kind of dropped the ball with their own superhero series. You know?
Yeah, I was gonna say, to your point, Dom, I think it's actually the reverse. That I think Star Wars is looking at Marvel as a playbook, because I think they already announced that Winter Soldier and Wanda was already going to be a part of the Yeah, they already announced that
Okay.
before. That was like the big pitch with Disney Plus. So the
Right.
Mandalorian is actually. I don't think that we're going to get a Star Wars TV show movie like connection for maybe like I don't even know when the next Star Wars is coming out.
Yeah, nobody does.
2022.
No one does.
So I think Marvel again. I think Star Wars is looking at Marvel right now as like their playbook. You know, that hence why they have a Kevin Feige movie in the works to produce. Hence why they have Taika Waititi coming from Marvel to Star Wars and a lot of other creators from the Marvel. So I think right now, it's just crazy to look at, even though Marvel's been around longer than, as far as the brand, been around longer than Star Wars, that, you know, that Star Wars needs to look at their, you know, their companion piece and see what they've been doing right in regards to connective tissue. And going back to the conversation we had about fandom, I think Marvel does the perfect job of having a pulse on the fandom. At this point, in my opinion, being a comic book reader, Marvel they're still appreciating the comics, but they're making their own stories. In regards to Endgame is not based on a particular comic book run. It's the Russo brothers and Christopher McPhee writing a story based on their history and then making Endgame. So I think Star Wars needs to find whatever pulse that is, whether it be a Kevin Feige, and we'll talk about Kathleen Kennedy and Dave Filoni and all them in the future.
We're
But
gonna get into them.
they have to find that pulse where they're looking at what the fans want, but don't do a retcon as they did with The Rise of Skywalker to The Last Jedi, or listening to what, you know, however they felt about Chris Lord and Miller and Colin Trevorrow with his film coming out and bombing. I can't remember the name, the Henry film, and they kind of the pieces.
Yeah, the Book of Henry. Yeah.
Just they look at the wrong things and they react. They're very reactionary, as DC was and kind of still is. So there's like I said, I think streaming is definitely going to be, and not to replace movies, but I think it's going to be more of a companion piece to kind of get, you know, because we got to remember we're not kids, and there's kids out there that their Star Wars is being consumed on television, being consumed on their iPads, being consumed on iPhone. So we're a different generation. So I think Star Wars and Marvel and all them, they're looking at not us, but the 10-year-old, 15-year-old, how they're consuming this content.
Yep. Exactly.
We're old, man. We are 100% old, but we're still
YOLO's
enough
a completely
to.
different generation.
Yeah, 100%.
But no, you know, Elliot, those are great points. If you just look at Planet Hulk, the comic run that came out the year before Ragnarok, I see so much inspiration in Ragnarok from the Planet Hulk run, which was clearly Marvel seeing that was a huge comic for the community. People freaked out about that, but what they did was they took the vibe, but they realized, hey, that's not really going to 100% translate to film. So let's take aspects of it. You know, Hulk as the gladiator, for example, that was a big part of the comic, Hulk kind of fighting for his freedom on Planet Hulk. They took that, but then they sort of put the Marvel magic on it. And that's because there's a clear direction with Marvel, a clear through line. So it really baffles me that Marvel can literally walk across the hall, knock on the door and say, hey, Kevin Feige, we need some help right now. Why aren't they doing that? First off. Second off, I think another reason Star Wars has kind of been in this hole.
No, you're fine. All dogs are welcome here.
Yeah, man. My pup, if I can tell you the amount of times that she's almost interrupted a show, I'd be like, I don't have enough fingers. But with that being said, like Marvel, you know, they kind of have, since they came out, been on the steady up. Right. Then they got into the movies and they had some success early on with the Tobey Maguire films, and they've just been slowly climbing. Star Wars came out on top. So if you're looking back, the prequels, as we all know, very divisive, not received the best. And now Disney acquired it. Disney thinking, hey, well, we can make something of this. Look what we're doing with Marvel. We've just made them even stronger than they already were. But I think it's like kind of that overconfidence and maybe Kathleen Kennedy thinking like, well, I've worked on big films in the past, you know, like Indiana Jones and whatnot. I can do this, but not understanding the source material, not understanding the place it was in when they acquired it. Sure, people got excited. This giant deal, what was it, like $4 billion or something like that?
Something like that.
But they didn't understand that, like, yeah, but people weren't too thrilled about Star Wars going into you acquiring it. You didn't have this, you have this potential to find gold, but you don't have this gold mine like you think you have. So for me, Star Wars, even though there's this giant franchise they're making more money than we'll ever make in our lives in a day, every day, but they're still kind of trying to battle out of the hole that they're in, dig themselves out of a hole. And I really don't think the suits realize that. And if you watch, this is my last thing before I turn it over to someone else. I've been watching this Mandalorian gallery because I'm very into the behind the scenes stuff. And on the second episode, they have Kathleen Kennedy. And it is so clear that she's just there for the paycheck. It is so blatantly obvious that she does not understand anything about these characters or even why people care about them so much. And so, like, until we fix this, I mean, I don't know what we're gonna do. I really don't.
I think that's the main difference. Sorry. I think that's the main difference. I think the secret here, it's not a big secret. You need to get people involved that actually love the characters they're talking about. Like, and that's what we've been seeing. Like, if when someone really loves the character and really wants to tell a story, it comes out okay. It's when you don't have a clue, when someone just like says, "Oh, okay, you the big director at the moment. Oh, you're making really cool movies. Here's an Ant-Man," and he's like, "Who's Ant-Man? I have no idea who that guy is." Okay, but you're really good at making this other movie, so just make one like this. No, you need to like. Most of these directors that pick up, like even Sam Raimi, that everyone said, "Oh, why is this guy doing Spider-Man? He does horror movies." Like, he always loved Spider-Man. He always talks in interviews, even before he was talking about Spider-Man. He always loved it. So that's why when he picked it up, he really had something to say. And then it just started going down when the studios want to start selling toys. And they're like, "Look, instead of one villain, we need to have 3. Oh, but I don't have a story to put Venom in." Oh, find a way, because that's really going to sell. And that's the problem. Like, when you big, it's a lot harder because there's expectations. And that's the problem with Star Wars. When it started, everyone had eyes on it. Everyone had expectations. When Marvel started with Iron Man, like, it came under the radar. No one had any expectations. Like, so they could do whatever they wanted. They could put, like, if it was now, probably Robbie Downey Jr. would never get a chance to play Iron Man because, oh, he's like an alcoholic. Oh, he's this, he's that. They wouldn't put him in front of a franchise that was worth billions. But because he was nothing, we were getting like crappy movies. They could do whatever they wanted. And that's why those smaller movies sometimes are better, because they can, like Blade. I still love Blade. I think it's one of the best Marvel movies ever. And they could go R, and they could go violent, and they could go with some things that they would never go today. That scene of him like in the rave with the blood coming down, that would never be made by a Disney like Marvel thing. So expectations is usually the biggest problem here, because they need to play by the book. Oh, sorry again.
That just makes your tangent even better, man. Preach, dude. You're running with the dog. You got my vote, man. YOLO 2020. Like, come on. This guy, he says it all. But no, YOLO, great point, man. I mean, I always look at Star Wars these days as like a prize fighter who is like, you know, he retired for 5 years and he went out in a bad way and he just wants his title back at all costs. And he's not realizing that, like, just to rush back into the ring in his shape and his condition is just going to be even more detrimental to his health than he is right now. You know,
and he's nervous with whatever he does. Like, whatever he does, like, he's going to be judged. It's like, it's exactly that. He's being nervous. I used to do martial arts, and every time you're nervous, like, it doesn't go your way because your head is not in the game. And that's why The Mandalorian, again, no one had expectations for that TV show. It was something, oh yeah, like, it's going to be, and like we were talking before, I think what they're doing now is what Marvel is doing. Like, they're going to do a She-Hulk, and then if it works out, they're going to do a movie. They're going to do a Moon Knight, and if it works out, they're going to be a movie. And that's exactly what we were talking about. Now, Star Wars should start testing out these things and realizing, is there a movie here or not? Are we going to spend all these millions doing a movie? It's not going to work. Maybe in a couple of years, we can have a Mandalorian movie, and there's going to be a crowd for it. But I think if they do the right things, they in the right path. But there's a lot to have the guts to make, and I think that's why they need Kevin Feige.
It's like back in the day, right? When I remember I used to love Pokemon, and they would have the show, and then the season would cap with the movie. Yeah, and then everyone rushed to it. You know, like Pokemon, and then first movie came out, and then the new season starts after the first movie. So yeah, it's probably like going back to the idea of cable. Yeah.
Dude, most definitely.
Yeah, that brought me back. Wow.
Yeah, man.
And I guess in order to kind of bring it back to Kennedy and Filoni and everything, and kind of, Chris, what you were saying is that, yes, you're right. Star Wars has proven, specifically Kennedy has proven above all else, that she is very averse to taking risks, which when this whole thing started, right, it was kind of the opposite, because it was tricky, because the whole thing that Star Wars had going against it, I guess you could say, that I feel like almost every other franchise didn't when it first started, is that it was Star Wars. Everybody already knew it. Everybody had eyes on it, you know? So, you know, like when Iron Man came out, nobody knew that that would result in Endgame, you know, like 11 years later, you know? Like DC tried for so long to find the Rocky footage, but even with Man of Steel, the thoughts on it being what they were, nobody knew that we were going to get like that was going to be like Cinematic Universe 2.0. You know, it's like all these different things start off because they don't start off with all these eyes on it. You know, they kind of are able to kind of slowly creep their way in. But Star Wars was different because with that, everybody knew what it was, you know, and it wasn't just a situation where we'd had some movies, we'd had legions upon legions of expanded material, you know, books, video games, comic books, animated TV shows, you know, we had all of this different stuff. So when Force Awakens came out, and it was for the most part, I think, because I still remember the reaction of Force Awakens still being very, very positive, and the divisions didn't really come in until later on. I still remember that movie being very well received, and it was almost kind of a miracle that it was so well received, but it's almost like it kind of went to Disney's head almost, because Kennedy made all of these risky moves, right? She's like, okay, you're going to get a war movie, you know? We're going to bring in all these big name directors, you know? Phil Lord and Chris Miller, you guys like the 22 Jump Street movies. Yeah, we're going to give them a movie. And it's funny because in the moment you would think, oh, wow. And those kind of really are risky decisions. And you're kind of sticking them all with their own movie. And at the point, like I said, it was kind of just, everybody was so blindsided by Star Wars being back. And also that like nobody was kind of really connecting all the dots in their head and realizing and kind of looking at it with any sense of rationality. Because it's like, oh, well, if you think about it, like, why? You know, especially, you know, hindsight being 2020. But the thing that I've heard, I actually watched a great video of it, which is where Sam Witwer, the voice actor for Darth Maul, and also the guy who they modeled the character, and also the guy who portrays the Starkiller character in the Starkiller video games, released a tweet a couple days ago, basically pointing a middle finger up at Rian Johnson, saying that Rian Johnson didn't do his homework when it came to The Last Jedi. And it was very interesting because I watched this video that was kind of breaking it down and kind of making you understand. And again, I don't blame Rian Johnson entirely for what happened. The only fault that I have with Rian Johnson with The Last Jedi is that I don't think Rian Johnson made a very good movie, right? But the whole Star Wars and it being interconnected with everything, I don't blame that on him, and I don't think anybody should blame that on him. But the whole thing with me is that I was so confused by is it's the same thing of what to me where Kathleen Kennedy failed, where Kevin Feige succeeded, which is the thing that I've been saying about Kevin Feige and kind of his whole approach and vision to towards Marvel, is that Kevin Feige is one of the few producers, money men, that's got a creative, artistic vision when it comes to this giant movie franchise, which is something that I have not seen from any other studio executive. And again, it's the thing of where part of the reason why Kevin Feige was able to work with so many directors the way that he did, where so many failed. Like I said, he didn't work with every single one. You know, obviously the whole Edgar Wright Ant-Man situation, you know, and obviously, well, he was battling with Perlmutter and putting all this stress on Joss Whedon when Age of Ultron was being made, and that's why Joss Whedon walked from Age of Ultron. But the whole thing is that Kevin Feige was able to place these very small indie directors and put them in situations where they knew what they were doing and where they were able to make the best possible movie at the point. You know, like he took the Russos and gave them The Winter Soldier because, and again, Joe, please try not to strangle me. He saw what they did with directing the paintball episodes of Community and was like, okay, these guys actually know how to direct action. You know, they even though it's an NBC sitcom, they know how to set a camera. They know how to trace it. They know how to make all this craziness go down while still making the audience understand what's going on. You know, these guys might actually be able to direct an action movie. You know, same thing with James Gunn with the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. James Gunn understood how to do damaged characters, regardless of whether it's in a space sci-fi setting. He knew how to do that. And so he kind of has this kind of creative artistic license towards how to use these guys so that they can play to their strengths and make the best possible movie. That is something that Kathleen Kennedy never really did with any of these Star Wars movies. You just saw, oh, you're a big name, boom, here's a movie. You're a big name here, boom, here's a big movie, which is why you saw so many behind the scenes production problems with every single Star Wars movie that was involved. But where I think the future is kind of a little bit optimistic, you know, everyone always says, you know, Dave Filoni should take over everything. You know, Dave Filoni, he knows what he's doing, you know, and I was for that, but I was also against that, at least until I heard what was going on with The Mandalorian, where the whole beauty of The Mandalorian is that, and Dave spoke about this on an interview, is that he was very, very happy to be working with Jon Favreau. You know, he said, yeah, he's a great creative partner. He knows exactly what to do. And he's kind of pushing me and to take creative risks and chances that I might not have if I hadn't gotten the opportunity to do live action. So I'm not going to say like it's any one person that should specifically take it. But what I'm saying is that kind of the mentality and kind of bounce off of what you guys have been saying about like maintaining a creative lens while also still being able to make a product that will be able to, you know, sell toys and make a lot of money is that, yes, it's good to get somebody who understands the IP and the source material, but you also got to get somebody, a boss, a creative head who knows what they're doing in terms of how to work with people, you know, because to me, at least where I see where Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are succeeding, where Kathleen Kennedy failed with The Mandalorian, is they're pulling all of these, again, the same thing that Kevin Feige is doing. They're pulling all these lesser known indie directors. You know, Taika obviously already had a huge blockbuster hit with Ragnarok on his hands, but, you know, Rick Famuyiwa, who directed Dope and had already left a DC movie because he was supposed to direct The Flash. You know, Deborah Chow, who I don't even know what her credits were up until this point. You know, Bryce Dallas Howard, with her, I think, directing like one of like her first things ever, you know, and they know how to work with these guys in order to play to their strengths and allow them to make the best possible thing. You know, that's kind of what we need. And that, to me, is what Star Wars needs more than anything else. And the good thing is that if that's the model that they choose to follow, I think that we are definitely going in the right direction when it comes to that.
So, Dom, I have two things to say. One is I love that we have a pup riding in the Falcon with
Seriously,
right now, YOLO.
yes.
The second is
YOLO's Chewbacca right there.
A couple of the people in here do have some live events to get to tonight as well. So in the spirit of wrapping this up, Dom, I thought that was incredible what you just said. Do you have like a final transition point where we can get into here before we sort of wrap this whole chat up?
I mean,
a great way to put the bow on it.
I mean, I did have a joke again, letting my cynical side out, which is I was going to tell the movies to keep screwing up so that we can keep giving Filoni and Favreau back, you know, and more ammo in order to keep embarrassing them and making them look completely incompetent. But no, I'm not going to say that. No, what I'm going to say is this, is that I think I've had a very fun time discussing this chat with all of you. I think, again, we all come from kind of different facets of the Star Wars fan, and we all kind of like have different individualistic views. But like the beauty of Star Wars, we can all kind of come together and express our own thoughts here. And what I will say is that whatever the future of Star Wars is, I'm going to be interested to see where it goes, because if there's one thing that this year has proven to me, it is that nothing is set and anything can change within a moment's notice. So yeah, whatever the future of Star Wars holds, I'm interested to see what happens.
What do you guys like, I guess, want to see, and what do you hope for / think the future of Star Wars is? Let's switch up the rotation here and give Elliot the time to go first here for this final round.
Well, no. So, well, just kind of going back a little bit to that one question I was posed in regards to saving Star Wars. It's a very, very, very interesting conversation in my eyes in regards to Kathleen Kennedy. You know, because obviously she's the face of the company in regards to when we think of Star Wars and the head of Star Wars, think of Kathleen Kennedy, same way we look at Kevin Feige and think about Kevin Feige, that he doesn't just grow on trees. It's a reason why not studios like Star Wars, like DC, the Monsterverse, there's a reason why they're struggling, because they don't have a Kevin Feige just to pull off of a tree. So it's easy for us to say, oh, just let Kathleen Kennedy, fire her and put in Dave Filoni or Jon Favreau. We don't know if those guys can make the same business decisions as Kathleen Kennedy. Yes, they're creative heads and they make great decisions when it comes to their work, but who's to say that they're going to be great executives running all of Star Wars, whether it be comics, movies, animated shows, everything we can think of, toys. That's what she's ahead of. So when things go right, the creators get the confidence, and they did a great job at that film. But once things go wrong, she's the face of the company, and it's her fault that the films failed. So it's really, really interesting to see what the future of Star Wars looks like and who can save Star Wars. If it needs saving, because we got to remember, going back to our conversation of being in a bubble, we see the negativity and toxicity. But again, the kids growing up in this generation, they might love every single thing Star Wars has put out since 2015. And they think this is the greatest run Star Wars has been in. So we got to keep that in mind, that we love Star Wars. We grew up with it, but there's another generation behind us that might think Kathleen Kennedy, as crazy as it might sound, they might look at her as George Lucas and think that she is the one that is bringing in The Mandalorian, that is bringing in Rey, first, leading the Star Wars franchise, the second film of Rogue One, and having Felicity Jones in the role. So they might look at her as the savior of Star Wars, if you want to call it that. So it's really, really fascinating to see the hate that she gives and not the praise of some of the stuff that she has done right. So as far as the future goes, I think one of the things that might be something to look into, again, I think she's a great business head and she makes a lot of great business decisions, and maybe keeping her in some kind of capacity running that particular realm, and maybe having, again, going back to Dave Filoni, having Jon Favreau, having the team that they're assembling. I think that's something that they're doing a great job at. Again, Rick Fukuyama, whether it be Deborah Chow and running the Obi-Wan show, I think they're building their own bullpen to have this kind of run of filmmakers to, hey, do a TV show, we'll give you a movie. Do a great TV show, we'll give you another movie, and just kind of kind of like, I don't say minor leads, because I think these are amazing superstars, but having people do TV first and then maybe translating into the films, a la Taika Waititi directing the last episode of The Mandalorian. 6 months later, he gets announced to do a film. So I think that's kind of the rotation and maybe the future of Star Wars, is using it as, again, Unyola brought it up and Joe brought it up, using your TV as a platform to test and put a pulse on the audience. And maybe that's their way of seeing what people like. And then taking that creative head, the director, and giving them the opportunity to direct the film, because it was so much great, goodwill with the TV show. So again, who knows what the future holds in regards to the head of Disney and Star Wars, but I think there's a lot of positive momentum and steps have been made to get it to where the original trilogy fans are going to be happy, the prequel fans are going to be happy, and this new iteration of generation will be happy, which again, we got to take into account that they're trying to make 40 years of fandom happy, which is a very impossible task to do, but I think they have the tools and the resources to do so.
Well said, my friend. Well said, my friend. Let's go over to the next box there. Casual moviegoer, man. What's your final take on this whole situation here?
Yeah, so I think I'll go back to the how to save Star Wars question. So Dom, I think to let you know, like, the reason I stopped watching the franchise, it wasn't for like the last slate of movies. It was purely because of the fan treatment, right, and how they operate. And that isn't just about like the toxicity. It's about the old guard and this idea of keeping things the same, Right. I remember earlier this year, my coworker, because we were having a debate about this, he's a Star Wars fan, and he said Star Wars is the one franchise that shouldn't change. And I was like flabbergasted. I was like, why? Like, what rules are set in place for that to be the case?
Yep.
So I think, honestly, if you want to save Star Wars, and I'm going to quote this person, only because I know it's going to piss some people off, I'm going to quote Kylo Ren. If you want to save Star Wars, you got to kill what came before it. You just got to get rid of it. It's like, you have to forget that old guard is not going to sustain your franchise for the future. Like everyone has been saying, it is the younger crop of people. It's the younger generation. So if the older people don't like it, screw them. Like, focus on the new guard. Yeah. And aside from that too, I think people should prepare that Star Wars isn't going to have the same clout in the next couple of years, because this isn't like the 70s where there's nothing like this before, Yeah. You have the Marvel films, now you have the DC films, you have like sci-fi epics being released all the time. I'm not saying all of them are as good as Star Wars or Marvel, whatever, but there's so much saturation out there. If Star Wars truly wants to change and wants to be the future, they have to, because there's so much pressure behind them to still be the top, they have to like really find something that nobody else is doing right now. And I don't think anyone knows what that is right now, because they have to figure it out. But in order for them to stop being seen as a Marvel clone or like someone stuck in the past, they got to figure something else out, something new.
Yeah. Wow. Well said, man. Yeah, me and Dom said that at the same time, because
thank you.
It's true. It is true. Joe, what is your kind of closing statement, closing thoughts on this debate, man?
Yeah, so building off of what Ankit was saying, so I'm going back and I'm just thinking here, and I've been quiet because I've been thinking back to when Disney acquired Star Wars. And as someone who is a big fan of the Disney company, I was excited to see that a company with that clout was getting its hands on it. In hindsight, after doing some kind of deep diving into Disney in terms of reading some books and reading some stuff about them, I think Star Wars was doomed to this period of transition right from the start of Disney's acquisition. And I see Sertone mention Kennedy and not deserving so much hate. What's interesting is that Kennedy has been a fantastic producer and fantastic force in the company since the 80s, but that was the 80s and the 90s. And, time has changed. And what we saw was, in my opinion, Star Wars was acquired by Disney and was given to someone like Kennedy, who was a sure thing to be able to keep it going, not necessarily for the creative side of things, but for the business side of things. And this goes back to my point earlier. I think she is a proven thing a proven talent when it comes to developing films, developing stories. But this is a completely different time. The rom-coms of the 80s and 90s are not what pass muster today. And Star Wars, I think she in particular really underestimated the impact that decisions, large and small, would have on the fan base that has been around for 40 some years. So I think they are getting to the right track right now. I do believe that with The Mandalorian, with Jon Favreau, with what's his name, Filoni, and all them involved, I think that there's going to be a better focus moving forward. I have a lot of hope for it. And I think that we've seen that they're willing to switch gears, right? Like not switching gears in terms of completely destroying the connection between the final three films in the trilogy, in the most recent trilogy, but in not going forward with the standalone Star Wars films that they were trying to push down our throats for a little bit with Rogue One and Solo. They saw that Solo didn't work, and I think that part of that is because everyone wants to see new stories. They want to, kind of, Chris, what you said earlier, there's more than just this one family and this one story to be told. So let's get there and tell it. And that's why I think The Mandalorian has been successful. And I hope that Obi-Wan can help branch out into other directions that potentially would allow more exploration of this galaxy far, far away.
No, well said, man. Well said. YOLO, dude, what's your kind of final thoughts on this whole thing?
Yeah, just going first on like this Kennedy and Kevin Feige. I think there's something that is very unique about Kevin Feige. If you listen to his interviews, he's a guy that can talk for 2 hours and he tells you a lot, but then when you analyze it, he didn't tell you anything. There's nothing there. He doesn't like the problem with Star Wars is every time there's some rumor, it's everywhere. Oh, the guys from Game of Thrones are going to do a movie. Then it falls down. It doesn't work. And then we have again everyone going, oh, they failed again. It's not the question of failing. This happens all the time behind the scenes. And I think what Kevin Feige does very well, he understands that information is everything. And if you can keep the flow of information where he wants it to go, he can make a lot of these issues that Star Wars is having something that doesn't happen at Marvel. We have like 1 or 2 examples with like Ant-Man, with there's a few that we can say, Edgar Wright. But Star Wars, I can name 20 just in the last probably year. And that's one thing that they need to control if they want to have a future. They need to understand that today it's not like, oh my God, my dog is...
He has to say something.
That's amazing, man. I love it.
I think he just wants to go out now, of God's sake. So, and the other thing that I keep saying about all these franchises, like I said, I was a big comic book guy. And all my life, my dreams was to see all these guys on screen. Oh, sorry. Just go.
You're all good, man.
Off the screen.
So the thing was, like, my dream was to always see these guys on screen. And when I see something I don't like, a movie that I don't like, I don't understand when people say, "Oh, that really ruined the whole movies that came before." Come on, we don't know how lucky we are. We are getting all this content. And like we see a movie we don't like and we take it personal. Like we were talking before about The Last Jedi. I actually think The Last Jedi is the best Star Wars movie since like the original trilogy. But the thing is it a Star Wars movie? Maybe not, but it's an amazing sci-fi movie. It's an amazing story. I think it's one of the best ones out there. Does he have flaws? Yes, he does. But there's a lot of good things on it. And people really take it personal, like it's an attack. Oh, my God. My Luke Skywalker would never throw his lightsaber away. Oh, come on. Grow up. It really annoys me. Because this guy is like old, living on an island for years. And we all going to say what he would do or not. Like, I've been on a quarantine for 30 days. And I'm doing stuff that I never thought I was going to do. Imagine living on an island for years. I would probably throw it away. And people really get like they focus on things and they get really angry and they say, oh, it just ruined the whole thing. Look, Jurassic Park for me now, it doesn't do the same that the originals did. It's like just these dinosaurs running around and like inside houses, and still doesn't get me angry and say, oh, the original was crap because of this. People just need to understand and like just be happy that other people like the Snyder Cut. I really want to see it, but if I didn't want to see it, why should I be against it? Other people want to see it. Just let it have them. If you don't want to see it, don't go to the movies. Don't stream it. Don't like just don't do it. But don't hate on people that want to see it. Like there's a lot of movies I don't want to see it, and I don't understand why they exist. But some of them, like in the end, after I watched them, they kind of shut me up. Like I thought, well, I wasn't expecting that. And like Rogue One is one of them. When they say, oh, they're making a movie about how the plants got inside the road, I was like, oh, you know what? Just leave it alone. It's one of the Star Wars movies that I really like. And that's the thing that someone was saying before in the comments. Like making a movie, it's like I think it was Ryan Johnson that said it's like not making what everyone wants you to do, but making something that people don't even know they want. And I think Ryan Johnson is one hell of a director. Like if you see Looper, if you see Brick, if you see all that. But he's not the director that's gonna like pick up Star Wars and do what everyone wants. And maybe Kennedy should know that. If Kennedy watched the movies he makes, he knows he's not gonna play along. And the same goes to Kevin Feige. You're not gonna get Edgar Wright doing your Ant-Man. He wants to do his own thing. And you need to understand, like, get big talents, yes, but get them to the right properties. And I think that's the future of Star Wars. Get the right guys to tell the right story and like see if they gel together, and don't try and change or the story or the creator behind it, but try and match them up. And I think that's what Kevin Feige is doing amazingly. Like getting people to do Guardians of the Galaxy and getting people to do Thor Ragnarok. You couldn't get any other kind of directors. And that's why, for example, when we got to say Justice League, you can get like Josh Whedon to do a Justice League like Snyder was going to do it. You can get someone and like say, oh, you're going to film a couple of extra shots and we're going to put them together. It's obvious that it's not going to work. It's not going to work. You need to get someone that's a visual director and knows what the other guy wanted to do. And I think that was the problem with the last Star Wars. We got like a lot of different people. They were working not together maybe. And I think you just have to have someone that knows the game plan and go with it. But I think Star Wars has a lot still to do. But like everyone said here, they're not playing alone anymore. There's a lot of competition, and they're never going to be as big as they were before. Same goes with Avatar. When we get the new Avatars, they're not going to be the success that everyone expects, because there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of loud things that make you go, whoa. Avatar was alone at that time doing something unique. So, yeah, we need to find something that's unique to Star Wars and give them to the right people, and I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And so I'm going to keep mine short and sweet, because I don't know if there's much I can say that isn't, outside of the realm that you guys have said. So really just like one sentence thing, just to like put a button on it, a little nice, bow on the package, if you will, is just, we need to look forward, not backwards. I'm totally with, I think Moviegoer was the one who like sort of like articulated that almost word for word. And I know I'm paraphrasing. I'm sorry, man. But I had to listen to a lot of responses. But yeah, we just got to look forward. And I think, the fandom kind of needs to adjust, because it's going to be different, but it could be good. With that being said, Dom, closing thoughts, and then I guess I know a couple of these guys have things they got to get to, and we also have some things to tell them about, so we could kind of push to the end here. I just want to thank Perp. I want to thank Sir Tone. I want to thank Luck. I want to thank Sach for hanging in the chat, giving us a lot of good opinions. I know I'm missing a few of you guys, and there's a few of you who have just kind of been watching on Instagram, shouting us out. We appreciate you guys being here. Thank you so much. it's a blast, and we had a lot of fun. And Dom, what are your sort of closing thoughts before we jump into the goodbyes, if you will?
Look, all I wanted to do today was bring together a panel of people to talk about Star Wars, and I definitely got way more than I bargained for, but I'm super happy about that. I love kind of the diversity of opinions that we got today, and my only thought process is kind of, I want to, like I said, just bringing my ego back to the forefront. I want to kind of like pull just pieces from everyone's opinions and kind of say, yeah, just everything. They got to take more risks, because taking risks are the key to actually not only just making good movies, but making big money. That's a thing that's been in the entertainment business since time of memoriam. But also, it's like and everyone's been saying they need to get more people. That they need to get the right people, but also get the right people that they can work with in order to produce the best vision. That's, to me at least, what has been missing from Star Wars since the Lucasfilm acquisition. I think that's what they need to do going forward in order to kind of, again, be the top dog is not the right word to use, but in order to kind of, I guess, stay relevant, I guess, for lack of a better word, But those are my closing thoughts on it.
Yeah, no, Dom, well said, man. And guys, again, this was, like Dom said, it was way more than he bargained for, and me being even newer to this whole realm than he is, I'm just blown away. I had such a blast chatting with all you guys. Moviegoer and YOLO, you guys are always welcome on the channel.
Thank you.
We love what you brought to the table. We appreciate you guys.
Really fun.
Just
really
taking
fun.
time out of your schedule. So thank you.
Awesome. Seriously, thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Elliot, I know you have an event on paper for tonight, so if you have to dip out after this, go for it, man. No hard feelings. I want to let you go first, though, on these outros, sort of let people know where they can find you, what to expect, and what you have going on earlier. And like I said, if you got to leave, man, we know you got to prepare. So we just appreciate your time, dude.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, no. Going back to what Dom and Chris is saying in regards to just the community, we've been talking about community the whole night, and I think what you guys are doing is fantastic. And again, everyone on this panel, support their content, subscribe to their channels, follow them on Instagram and Twitter. They have a lot of great opinions. They're awesome people, so definitely support their content. So yeah, this was a fun topic, man. This was a great debate. I look forward to more of these in the future, maybe. But it's a topic that's still being had because Star Wars does mean a lot to people. We talked about casual fans, super fans. It's a franchise that's been around since the '70s, and it's still here in the 2020s and beyond. So even when we're gone off this earth, Star Wars will probably still be a thing. So it's a very important movie franchise, but it means a lot to a lot of people. And I think that the future is looking bright, personally. But yeah, as in regards to just content to look forward to tonight, I will be having a watch along for my horror fans out there. And boy, wouldn't that be something to get a horror Star Wars type of film? That would be something interesting. But tonight we're celebrating the 40th anniversary of The Shining. So 6 p.m. Central Time on my YouTube channel. Check me out, as well as some other guests that I'll be having on that watch along. We're going to be breaking down the film, discussing the horror franchise as it is, some of our favorite horror franchises in the past, and where horror is headed in the future. So really awesome stream I'm going to have tonight. So hopefully you guys can tune into that. But besides that, more content as regards to movie reviews, TV reviews, and all the fun things I do on my channel. So definitely check me out. And again, I can't iterate it enough and repeat it enough. Check out these guys' contents. Subscribe to everyone on this panel. Again, they have a lot of great topics, have a lot of great conversations. They're awesome people, very diverse conversations that they have, and you guys should definitely support them. So again, I appreciate you guys having me on tonight. And hopefully this won't be the last time that we have some type of conversation like this again.
Oh no, dude, this is definitely going to be the first of many. And Elliot, man, we appreciate you, my friend. YOLO. You made a lot of time out of your schedule to hang with us, because I don't know how many hours apart we are. So we really appreciate you being here, man.
It's 10 o'clock now at night. Usually when you guys do it at 8 p.m., it finishes here at like 3 in the morning. So today is fine.
Okay, cool. I'm glad we could help you out there.
So like I said before, we do this just to start conversations with the community. So all our content in Instagram at the moment, that's what we're doing, is about that community. So we review movies and we talk with people and ask for their opinions. We also created a page that's called Movie Lovers Movie Club, and we're gonna get an event soon, starting on Monday, that we get 30 different accounts that they're gonna say what they're missing the most in this quarantine, and they're gonna pick a movie that represents it the best. And so we're gonna have 30 different stories of what they're missing in what movie kind of pictures that the best. And that's the idea. It's like to get the voices out there, start discussions. That's why we love stuff like this. And hope you guys can join anytime and we can do more of this, because I think this is what's needed to fight this toxicity, is to get people talking about it. And even if they have different opinions, they can still respect each other and just have a conversation without having to insult anyone, and just saying, look, that didn't work for me, but I understand your point. I might not agree, but I understand it. So that's what we're trying to do in our account, and anyone is free to just give their opinion, good or bad.
Yeah, no, for sure, and I can attest to that sort of being true. And so, Joe, man, I clicked on your screen next, so I guess you're up, my friend.
Totally agree with everything that's been said so far. I think what I've learned over the past year, almost a year of doing all this stuff, is that the community is really great when you can share some of your thoughts and share opinions and just end up having a good conversation. We just talked for an hour and 53 minutes and counting about Star Wars. And, for those that are watching, there were prepped questions leading into it. And I'm not sure we really got to all of them because the conversation took us a different direction. But that's a good thing. So Guyatthemovies on Instagram, guyatthemovies.com. YouTube is starting to get that going. And this upcoming week, there will be a Quarantine Conversations on Tuesday night and Thursday, as well as Queer Movie Monday on Monday. And I'm trying to think if I have anything else going on right now, but I think this is a quieter week than it's been, which I am not hating against. But guys, thanks for having me here. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, sometimes you do need a little break, man. I definitely, but you're so busy. So your quiet weeks are like, those are like my busy weeks. But so speaking to this whole community thing, which I definitely 100% believe in, and it's not just a good TV show.
Was that
it's
an intentional pun?
Right now with all of us. We would not have the Casual Moviegoer here if it wasn't for Joe, and sort of just like being like, hey man, I got someone if you need him. And I was like, dude, anyone's welcome. So Casual Moviegoer, man, thank you for coming on, chatting with us, being a part of our community, and we just had a blast chatting with you, man. I hope to do it again soon.
Oh man, honestly, thank you for having me. I, like you guys were saying, I didn't know what to expect with this conversation, but it was so refreshing and sobering and such a mature conversation for Star Wars. I had a blast. Happy to come back anytime you guys want me. I'll make my promo quick because I'm slowly realizing my white shirt is blinding the screen.
As you were sort of getting super prolific there at the end, it was like an angelic aura.
Right?
You were quite literally getting blinded by the light.
I'm ascending to a higher form, guys.
Going Super Saiyan on us.
Yeah, so promo-wise, Casual Moviegoer. If you guys are looking for 60-second movie reviews, that's my bread and butter. So what I have coming up right after this, I have to go and record 2 reviews. So I have The Lovebirds coming up. And then I have Blue Story, which is a pretty fun crime drama from the UK. And then on Tuesday, I have the release for, I'm participating in Undiolo's Movie Lovers Movie Club competition. I'm going to be actually, since we're talking about Star Wars, the thing I miss the most about quarantine is being able to go out and eat. So I'm reviewing Chef, Jon Favreau's movie. So it should be fun. But again, thank you for having me.
Anytime, man.
Does this mean you back to Star Wars now that you have a good conversation?
No, I gotta stick by my principles.
Stick your guns there,
man. Yeah. So, guys, we do know it's still crazy quarantine times out there, although the world is sort of, unfortunately, kind of adjusting. But please stay safe wherever you guys are, both everyone on the panel and in the chat. And we're going live a lot for you guys. So if you need something to do, we're always here for you. And Dom, you said you kind of had a few things you wanted to tell people before we popped out of here.
I do. Well, first off, I just wanted to say, Joe, I do my laundry on Sundays, so that's why. I saw your little crack in the background there. I just had to respond to that. But so guys, if you guys didn't see, obviously we're the Talking TV podcast. I'm Dom. That's Chris, movie nerd, TV nerd. You guys know that spiel by that point. We're a podcast. We're on Anchor, but we're also specifically on YouTube now. You can leave the like button. You could click the subscribe button. You could leave a comment. That would be pretty cool too. And we've got we have some content that we just put up. I just put up my top 10 Star Wars lightsaber fights. I had a lot of fun making that video. Chris and I went live obviously yesterday to talk about the Snyder Cut news. And we've just got a lot of interesting content, to say the least, coming up. And I don't want to necessarily spoil all of it, but I know Chris likes spoiling things, so I'll let him do that.
I was just going to say every Monday we kind of post our channel schedule on our Instagram, so just head over there and, full transparency. That's how we like to operate. We have 2 watch-alongs if you wanted to watch along with past me and Dom, and also Elliot and Joe, Solo and Rogue One. We watched this month in our Star Wars month celebration, so check that out if you want. But like I said many times, you guys, if you're just sort of watching this and hanging out casually, a subscribe really goes a long way for everyone's channel here, or a follow for what we're all trying to do, because this is very much so a passion project, but we want to share it with as many of you. That's why we're giving up 2 hours out of our day, because we love this. And so we love the support. We appreciate, like Sir Tone's comment here, man. Respect and civility is what we need. It 100% is. And so we appreciate you guys being a respectful audience as well, and hanging out with us. And with that being said, go subscribe and follow to all of our guests. They make amazing content. I am very much so a fan, which is why they're all here. But we have a way we like to end the show, don't we, Dom?
Yes, we do. And before we leave, follow us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram at Talking TV Podcast. It's really easy. And people, happy Star Wars month. It's sad that we only have 1 week left, but yeah, watch more fucking movies. We out. Non-PC version.
All right. See you guys.